Well, we finally make our return to the world center of racing, and today we get set to welcome a brand new series to the fold here on Green Flag TV. Welcome to the VSCA SportsCar Championship and the Roar Before the 24. My name is Ola Ramble alongside Austin Edstrom. We are bringing you all of the coverage here tonight from this qualifying race for the 24 Hours of Daytona taking place 1 week from now. Austin, Daytona, we know it, we love it. It is ever a mainstay on the endurance racing calendar with the Rolex 24 Hours of Daytona in the real world. And well, we're getting set for our own version. Before we do that, we got to set the grid, and that's what the next hour and 40 minutes are going to be all about.
Yeah, typically I'm counting down the days until the Daytona 500, but here this year, a lot of focus on the Daytona 24, especially here on Green Flag TV. Lots of racing here at the Daytona International Speedway coming up to you guys in the next week, starting here with the Roar Before the 24 qualifying race, like Nolan mentioned, for our big 24-hour race next week, next Saturday morning. Super excited for that one. But first up, we got to see what these guys are made of here in the qualifying race, the Roar Before the 24.
4 different classes get set to roll off today, and of course, the fastest of the bunch will be none other than the GTP class, headed up by the Acura ARX-06 GTP, the BMW M Hybrid V8, the Cadillac V-Series Point R GTP, and the Porsche 963. The LMP2, which is of course fielded by the Dallara P217. Then 2 different types of GT3 classes. The first being GT Pro, holding the Audi R8 LMS Evo 2 GT3, the brand new Audi that just returned to iRacing, or that just made its trip to iRacing over here at the start of the year. The BMW M4 GT3 and then the Porsche 911 GT3 R992, along with the GTM class. That'll be headed up by the Ferrari 296 GT3, the Lamborghini Huracan GT3, and the Mercedes AMG GT3. So 4 classes, and well, you know what this means, Austin, right? You got over 50 cars that are about to put down qualifying laps, and it's going to be absolute pandemonium on the racetrack. We might be fine for the first 4 or 5 laps or so. The second those prototypes hit GT traffic, that's where all hell breaks loose.
Yeah, it's really whenever the traffic starts hitting, or whenever the lead class starts hitting the back end of the traffic, that we really start getting a lot of hairy moments, especially through that infield section. I mean, you go through that international hairpin, there's turn 3, and getting down to that kink of turn 4, and I just feel like there's a lot of bottle-up opportunities where there's going to be some LMP2s getting a little frustrated with some of the slower classes, but in all seriousness, typically I think it's the faster cars that are, you know, kind of causing issues most of the time whenever they're trying to get past these slower classes. So we're going to have to keep an eye on that, especially in the infield. I think on the oval it should be okay as we get a look at our track data there on the right. Not really too hot, only a 22 degrees Celsius track temp. If I had a pen and paper, I would translate that to all my Fahrenheit buddies, but I could not do that in the top of my head.
It's about in the, I think about the high 80s, low 90s range for the Fahrenheit users out there. But again, it's going to be a wild race, right? We've got a lot of qualifying coming on up as well. Single car qualifying for this, qualifying for the qualifying race. Not something I say all that often. 2 laps or 10 minutes will be the distance. Each driver will get 2 timed laps on their lonesome. So we'll be having all of these drivers hitting the starting grid all at the same time. And well, qualifying is indeed about to kick off with multiple cars already making their way onto the racetrack here for this first lap of qualifying. And among those is your GTP class. You're looking at the number 3 for MSP3, the team that will be looking to try to make that start on the pole of the Porsche 963.
Yeah, coming around the pit exit right here. One of the toughest pit exits, I gotta say. I mean, my goodness, I just feel like it's so sketchy going through. It's got its own little S section coming out, and then it throws you right out into the racing line, into the braking zone for that turn 3 section. You're gonna be really tough in the race for a couple of pit stops after a couple of driver changes, but here in qualifying, not too much of a problem as we've only got 1 car on the track at a time, obviously. Everybody on their own little circuit right here as we watch. Is that a German flag going around right here? We got a couple German racers in the field.
Oh,
I'm sure we got a wide spread of nationalities. Yeah, I'm sure we got a wide spread of nationalities here for the Rolex 24 qualifying race. Not too surprising.
And you got a lot of these cars like the Dallara P217. And out of all the classes, I think the LMP2 category is the most exclusive, right? A lot of the other categories we got racing, they've got 3, 4, 5 manufacturers running in them. LMP2's only got 1. iRacing only has 1 LMP2 car on the service, and that is the P217 for the time being. So I'm curious to see how this is going to pan out for the Dallara guys. Now, the LMP2 class, you were mentioning earlier, they might be the ones getting a bit frustrated. I think they've got their work cut out for them the most in this type of racing, right? Because while the faster classes just have to worry about getting around everybody else, the slower classes have to just worry about letting everybody else by. They got to worry about both. They're trying to deal with the GTPs lapping them while trying to lap the GT classes as well. There you see the GSC Racing Merlin Audi, driven by Kevin Mueller, taking a spin through the bus stop chicane. That was just on the out lap. Still will have time to get through and put down the next laps on the afternoon. But again, a lot of cars with some big potential here, potentially make some big mistakes in the early goings at least.
Yeah, you definitely don't want to make that mistake in qualifying, but hey, if it's on that out lap, then it's not really too big of a deal. You'll be able to go back out and get those tires warmed back up after you take your tow. Still plenty of time here in the qualifying session with a lot of these guys going out a little early, making sure just in case they do make that mistake, they can just take that tow, reset back to the pit lane, and at least get a decent lap in. But still, 10 minutes of qualifying total, probably about halfway through at this point. Still plenty of time for these guys to put in a couple laps, see what they can do. Really important to start up towards the front of the field here in your given class, because man, that the roar before the 24 is so important for starting that starting lineup. I mean, I've seen a couple times the last couple of years the real life 24 come down to just a couple of inches between winners. So I'm sure we could see the same thing in the roar, or sorry, not the roar, but in the virtual 24-hour here in the VSCA SportsCar Championship. And, you know, it all starts with the roar before the 24, starting that starting lineup. Super important to be starting towards the front.
Well, the last Daytona 24 in this championship, it did come down less than half a tenth of a second between two cars. And I do believe that was for the GT Pro win in last year's race, running of this race as well. Not the roar, but the Daytona 24 itself. So you are absolutely correct. It could very much come down to just those fine margins after so many hours. Bernie at the moment putting down the benchmark time in the GTP category as he'll put down a 1:31.579. That'll quickly be bested, though, by the likes of Selena Ward for Trading Paints Racing Black in their crew. Currently puts down that benchmark time. Meanwhile, in LMP2, Kyle Harkima at the moment for FRS Sim Sports on that top step right now for the LMP2 category. Still waiting on some GT3 times to roll in.
Yeah, not quite yet seeing the GT3 cars roll on by, but as we see the faster classes come on through, LMP2, GTP, about 5 drivers in both already putting through, and we finally got our first GT Pro time. Just a little bit off the front of the GTAM. Like you mentioned, the GTs are relatively similar, right? The two GT classes are going to be relatively close in pace, it does seem, here at the Daytona International Speedway. So we get a look at NASCAR 1 and 2 coming around. Sorry, this might actually be 3 and 4.
You think that I would know being a NASCAR guy. 2.
Oh, okay. Man, you would think I would have it absolutely perfect being a NASCAR guy, but hey, you know, I'm a little tired. It's a little early in the morning. These European guys, man, they got me waking up way early in the morning for myself. That might be middle of the day for them. They might be wide awake, but man, I just still need a cup of coffee.
I mean, you're telling me. I mean, I've been up since about 5 a.m. prepping for this race. But, I mean, hey, we do what we got to do. Watching Selena Ward currently has that provisional pull time. About almost 0.2 of a second up on Kyle Burney as Selena Ward will work out of the NASCAR turn 4. Kyle Burney tries to take the pole time back. Got improved by 0.3 of a second here this time by at the stripe. Not able to do it. Improves on the time, but off by just 0.010 of a second for Selena Ward. So Kyle Burney will be starting this race from the pole for now for MSP3. There's still a long way to go. The LMP2 times are starting to fall in as well. Still got 3 cars that have yet to put down a qualifying time, but right now it is Joey Mason in the SCO WRS GTO 48 that is currently on that pole position for your LMP2 category, and still with 1 lap to put down as well for that 048 Dallara P217. And now we see the faster GT Pro times start to settle in. Obeid Salem at the moment for Yellow Submarine Squad SimLab in that 532 Audi R8, now firing around the top of NASCAR 1 and 2. Now you mentioned the pace for the GT cars is going to be relatively similar as we see Kiko Alves go to the top. That's one thing that I think it's important to note as well. Usually in endurance racing, or road course racing in general, right, where there's multiple classes, we're used to seeing all the classes break apart and have their own little starts. That's not the case here. GTP and LMP2 will actually be starting in one giant grid, and the GT Pro and GTM classes will be starting in one big grid of their own towards the back. So only separation between 2 groups of classes instead of all 4.
Wow, that's going to make it really hairy here between the 2 different GT classes, the GT Pro, GTAM, because like we've been talking about, their times are absolutely the exact same. I mean, Sato in the 531 in the GTAM class has just put in what would be good enough for 4th fastest in the GT Pro class. So, yeah, I mean, they're right on top of each other. There's multiple drivers in the 144s in both of those GT classes. So it'll be a little hairy between the 2 GT classes, but kind of want to give some or spotlight the GTP class. There's so many drivers within just a second of each other. I mean, we've got 12 teams that have all put in a qualifying lap within 1 second of each other. That's pretty freaking close between 12 drivers. So I'm excited to see the GTP class get kicked off and kind of see who our overall winner is going to be here today.
And it's a packed GTP class as well. You got 15 of the GT prototypes getting set to make starts here in this one. You've got, I think, 11 LMP2s from the looks of it. Kind of looking down to the field, you got 12 in the GT Pro class and then 15 in GTM. All of that equates to just over 50 cars, so it's going to be a full grid this afternoon, and that's going to be, it's going to mean a lot of chaos, at least in the early goings at least, and I would not be surprised if we saw a few pretty big pileups in that early going. Now, there are safety car periods in VSCA. However, they are not for individual incidents. They are thrown at random to kind of shake up the running order, much like we see in the beer league on Wednesday nights, Austin, except this time, it's not over the course of 1 hour. It's over the case of several, and there's no limit to how many we can have.
So for even oh my goodness, that's even for the 24.
That's for all races,
and there's no limit. Wow, that's going to be interesting to watch all year long. Can't wait. But here tonight, you mentioned the potential for accidents going down into turn 1, and you brought up the beer league. Well, I'm going to bring up the beer league again. They drove 46 late models down into road course turn 1 on Wednesday, and every single person came out completely clean. So if we can't do that in the 24, I'm going to be a little upset.
Well, to be fair,
they were drunk.
To be fair, late model stocks, they're meant to bump and rub a little bit more than prototypes and GT cars are. They're made to go fast. They're not really made for the rough racing that we can often see on Wednesday nights. But we'll see what the plan's going to be for these guys. We got just over 60 seconds left here in qualifying as we are looking set to close out the session here pretty quickly. Still have 2 GTPs, 1 LMP2, 3 GTMs, and 2 GT Pros that have not put down any sort of lap times. Now, I don't believe it's a requirement to make a qualifying lap. I know it's a requirement to make a practice lap to make sure that everything is good to go. And in fact, one driver was in fact disqualified. The number 50 Ferrari off of the SS Racing. They will not be making the start this afternoon because they signed up with the wrong car number. Their car number 50, they're supposed to be 83.
Oh, man. That's a little bit of a rookie mistake there. Unfortunate from the Ferrari team, though. At least they were getting it settled before the 24, right? I imagine they could probably get it all fixed and just qualify at the back of the pack for the 24. I mean, that's a pretty hefty penalty, don't get me wrong, but at least this is not the actual points race that matters. 24 hours is a lot of time to make up that distance. While it is important to start towards the front and hope that you can prevent yourself from getting into damage or wrecking whenever you're trying to make a pass with some of these other guys through the race, at least it's 24 hours. You got plenty of time. You don't have to push it too hard.
Qualifying is complete. We are ready to rumble from the roar before the 24. So let's take a rundown of what your starting grid is going to look like as we get set to duke it out for the next hour and 40 minutes to see how things are going to line up for that critical 24 hours of Daytona. Starting on the pole in GTP, Kyle Burney will be up in MSP3. Thomas Sorensen for Stop and Go Race will be down at the number 2 spot, just 1,000th of a second off in qualifying. Selena Ward for Training Paints Racing Black will be in 3rd with Composite Performance's Patrick Fogel in 4th. Thomas Mora will be in 5th with Thomas Martin in 6th. Scott Meredith will be in 7th with Steinecke will be in 8th. Jeff Schroeder will be in 9th. Neil Middleton rounds out the top 10. Nelson Clemente and Alfonso Quiros will be down in the number 12 spot. Wrapping out the GTP field, you've got Matthias Baumler, Iker Estefania, and Christophe Demey. Austin, you got the LMP2 field.
That sounds good. Leading up the LMP2 field, Jory Mason, 2nd place, Jack Hedgecox. 3rd, Ryan Ware. 4th, Kyle Harkema. 5th, Michael Adam Zik. 6th is Karen Batten. 7th, Sam Vaughn. 8th, John Gibson. 9th place is going to be Jeff Yeager. 10th, Thomas Buechel. And 11th place is going to be Spencer Torrance.
Taking up the GT Pro field, you've got Nicholas Sol alongside Kiko Alves on the front row. Thomas Ambrosio will be in third, with Obaid Salem will be in fourth. Kevin Mueller will be in fifth, with Mark DeBoer in sixth. Stefan Jacobson is in seventh, and Stefan Nobes will be down in the number 8 spot. Rounding out the top 10, you'll have Vincent Herbier and Nelson Narciso. Saul Flores and Shrink will be down in the number 12 spot.
Leading up the GTAM class is going to be Afonso Soto. Second, Quinn Mitchell. Third, Ryan Kaprowski. Fourth is Tamer Elbaga. Fifth, Philip Forrester. Sixth, Sean Hatfield. 7th place is going to be Mark Stevenson, followed by Shreyas Raju in 8th. Paul Romanowski starts in 9th with Tyler Tucker in 10th. Ronald Gross in 11th. Ryan Steinhoff in 12th. Carl Felder in 13th and Max Bijan in 14th. And rounding out our huge field here tonight, the 15 of Stu Leslie.
And that will close out the starting grid here tonight in the Roar before the 24. Apologies if we did end up butchering any of the names. Like you mentioned, we're both from North America. European names, not quite our forte, but if we got it wrong, just holler at us. We'll be sure to correct ourselves going forward. But your GTP and LMP2 categories rolling off into NASCAR 3 and 4. I tell you what, my computer is grateful. They're splitting this field up. It would not like seeing everybody kind of grouped up double file, but we're going to work out of turn number 4, and we'll get set to kick off racing action from the World Center of Racing in the Roar before the 24. Kyle Burney will be on point. He will lead the way down and in towards turn number 1. The GT field just starting to roll on the backstretch. The pace car will pull down into pit road. We're happy that you're joining us here on the Saturday morning as the MSP3 number 3 Porsche 963 will look to get on the loud pedal, and we are officially underway for the VSCA Sports Car Championships 2024 campaign. Good getaway from Bernie as he makes that drive down and in towards turn number 1. So far, looking like a clean getaway from your prototype fields, and no dramas coming around through turn 1. A bit of a checkup for the LMP2 field in the back, but overall, clean start from your front runners up on pole. Austin, you got the GT start.
Yeah, they're coming up to the line right now, the GT field. Both GT classes coming up, looking to get their season underway here in the qualifying race at the Roar before the 24. Coming down to take the green flag. 30 seconds after our first group going down into turn 1, our leader gets a good getaway. Looks pretty clean here going down to the turn 1 through the entire field. A little heavy on the brakes for a couple of these guys up towards the front of the field, trying not to get in the back of the guy in front of them. But it looks like they're all clean through turn 1 as they go through our kink of turn 2. And now down into the International Horseshoe. Turn 3, still all clean between all these guys. We have a lot of guys stacked up at the exit of pit road, waiting for their chance to get out.
And those are all drivers that ended up missing their mandatory laps. That's why they are having to start this race from pit road. There's been a few dramas towards the tail end of the field, noticing that Thomas Buechel, John Gibson, and Garen Batten have all gone around. Meanwhile, Kyle Burney rocketing away from this field, and we will, in just a second here, we'll get a chance to show you what happened here to Buechel and more. Now, this was on this opening lap here. Just exiting the West Horseshoe. This is entering the West Horseshoe. This is in the LMP2 field. And bit of a nose-to-tail contact, and right there, RJ Racing gets spun around, and that results in a 3-car parking lot down at turn 5. But overall, could have been worse. Good job on the field for getting around that mess.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, with still a whole hour and 40 minutes left in this race, you'd maybe expect a little bit more patience, but I guess, whenever you're used to the long endurance style and, maybe you've been running 12-hour, 24-hour races, maybe you feel like an hour and a half left is a pretty short distance, but pretty crazy move down there into turn number 5. Maybe a little bit early for that, though. Probably wouldn't, probably rethinking that move here on lap number 2.
I mean, hey, you got to make those moves where they count. And you mentioned the fact that this race could very much feel like a sprint. This is, in fact, one of the shortest races on the season. And in fact, I think there's only 2 others that are only an hour and 40 minutes. So this is among one of the shortest races we're going to have. Here you see one of the LMP2s that had to start in pit road, filing past a good chunk of your GT Pro and Am category. Right now, Vulture Motorsports and Digital Spirit DS Racing, 2 different classes scrapping it out in their own little GT fields. And here is the front runners. This is the battle for the lead in your GT Pro category. And we have had some trouble for Ronald Gross going around on lap number 2.
Yeah, you're going to have to get a replay here going down into turn 1. We saw a little bit of contact between these two up towards the front, but further back, looks like Gross trying to just, oh man, huge contact in front. Yeah, I saw it on the initial feed. The camera switched over right as the car that went head on into the inside wall there. It made a little bit of contact with another driver in the middle of the of turn 1, and it just kind of squirted them sideways. Really good job though from Gross, I believe it was, to get that thing lowered down, because that car came to a heavy stop right in front of him, and he was able to completely avoid it.
Take a look at the battle for third in your LMP2 category. Rising Panda Racing going after FRS Sim Sports just up the road. So far, none of these drivers have kind of switched around too much where they ended up starting in this race. So fighting out for third, and just in front of them, the battle for the lead in your LMP2 category between SCO Derby, I'm just going to call it Scours GTO 48 and Gowan Racing just in behind, separated by, again, 0.3 of a second. That's next to nothing when you get down to proper road course racing. Meanwhile, one of the GTP cars ducking around the outside of Kiko Alves. And Alves on a good breakaway at the moment as he's trying to fend off Fisher Motorsport just behind.
Yeah, Alves kind of building up that gap pretty well here for the GT Pro lead, up to 0.7 of a second. Just a couple laps into the race. I do believe they're taking lap 3 or 4 here. Just a couple minutes into the race. Lap 3, I believe, starting for the GT class. And as we look back a little bit further back, now looking at Sato in the GTAM, our race leader for that 4th class. He's got a 2.5 gap over Kaprowski in the 93. Coming through this kink, man, just tons of cars all stuck together, nose to tail here, coming down into the International Horseshoe. As we see Sato still in the lead by about a 2.5.
And has 2 GT Pro cars between himself and the second place runner. The Porsche and the Audi you see just in the background, those are both 6th and 7th in the GT Pro category, so that's the fight for 6, kind of him getting in the way of this fight for the GTM lead. That's always risky business, and this is the hazard, right, of having those 2 GT categories. Now you're going to have the 2nd and 3rd place runners, who, by the way, are indeed teammates. 2 digital chicane cars running 2nd and 3rd in GTM. They're going to be eagerly trying to get their way around these 2 guys in front of them so they can look to fight things up the road. Meanwhile, Hedgecock's spun around at turn 1. That's the Gowan Racing Machine that's just spun out from 2nd place.
I feel like that's going to be the main trouble spot of the night. I feel like it's going to be turn 1 and in the Rolex 24. It's going to be turn 1, and it's going to be turn 4 or 5 area, right? That kink is going to be a big problem spot as we see the replay here going down into turn 1. Heavy on the brakes, maybe just a little bit too heavy. Gets it squirrely, loses the back end. It comes around. Luckily, not too much more damage. There's a little bit of car contact between the 2 guys going around the outside, but everybody doing a really good job taking evasive action and getting around the slow GTP on the bottom of the racetrack.
No kidding. That was great stuff there from the GT guys as they just managed to kind of avoid disaster there. It's yeah, that's risky business, right? When you get kind of stopped in the middle of the racetrack like that again, could have been a lot worse. And overall, the racing action has really kicked off in earnest. The LMP2 race lead has just extended tenfold because of that. And here we go. The GTP drivers catching their first lap traffic of the day on just the 4th lap of the race, or at least their lap 4 of the race. Kyle Burney still leading the way. Now remember, Burney's not going to be in that car forever. He may be starting this race, but it is mandatory to make at least 1 driver swap before the end of the day, and each driver has to drive for at least 25 minutes. So I'm curious to see what's going to happen when we get down to those driver swaps. Sometimes teams will have the slower of the 2 drivers starting the race off, and then they can have the gold driver look to finish the deal.
I feel like that's probably the smarter play, right? You get the slower guy out there, and you hate to say this, but you get the slower guy out there that maybe is a little bit better in traffic, right? Maybe they're a little bit cleaner and they're a little bit less aggressive, so they take better care of the car whenever there's a lot of cars around them. And then as soon as it gets spread out, you get to that, maybe the 25-minute mark or whatever you need to make that pit stop, and you do the changeover for the faster guy who now has a bunch of clean track and allow him to just attack the rest of the race. It'll be interesting to see, who kind of started out that way, who started out flipped opposite, right? Is Bernie the fastest guy here for the Mayer Sim Speed Performance team in that number 3 machine in the GTP class? Or did they start out with a slower guy and they're going to, in Bernie, and they're actually going to put an even faster guy in the car at the pit stop and then just take off? So a lot of different strategies that we can see here today, even in the only an hour and 40-minute race.
There's pros and cons, right? I mean, sometimes it's more useful to have the gold driver starting the race off because then they can manage to get the car around all the chaos that the early stages of the race can bring. And they can try to build up that gap, but then the second driver, all they got to do is manage it as the time moves along. Now, there's a minimum of 2 drivers. There's a maximum of 3. That will change for the Daytona 24, where I think you can have up to 5 or 6 drivers in the car, so long as it's even drive time amongst the field. But it can really depend, right, on how you want to really kind of play your cards. As, oh, boy, getting in the way is one of the Fusion Ferraris in the back. That's going to stack up Selena Ward towards Patrick Vogel and a Composite Performance Cadillac as they dive their way through the International Horseshoe. So that getting a bit tight, and here we go. This is, meanwhile, just in behind. This is all the battle for 7th on back. This is a big gaggle of cars.
Yeah, we've got GTPs stuck together with GT Pros, GTAM.
Oh,
man, one goes around through the kink of turn 4. I said that was going to be a problem spot. You never want to be faced to the opposite end of the racetrack, as we see the 312 of the GTAM class. That's Gross, who's stuck sideways on the access road on the inside. Tough break for Gross coming through turn 4. Got onto that replay a little bit late. Couldn't quite tell if he got a little bit of a touch through that kink. I feel like most of the time I drive in the Daytona road course, and I'm in a slower class, I'm getting absolutely punted by an LMP2 or a GTP whenever I go through that kink every time. So I would not be surprised if that's what we saw there.
Well, that tends to happen in races like this. There's a bit of a twitch for one of the Mercedes. You're looking at the moment the fight for 3rd in your GTM category between Digital Chicane's number 80 entry and the MSP 33, driven by Kimber Elbago, just behind the 33 Mercedes, trying to run down some extra time. And meanwhile, that 4th, that's one of the GT Pro cars. I do like that they've split up the GT AM and Pro categories by manufacturer, as one of those cars ends up in the wall, and that's going to result in a change in the lead. The Digital Chicane's number 93 entry takes it to the point. I'm going to look back on what happened there.
Kind of looked like the GTAM was trying to get out of the way, but it was just a little bit late. I mean, the GTP was looking to his outside. He just kind of squeezed him into the wall. A little bit of a tough break there. It's the driver of the 4, I believe that's Martin in the GTP class, kind of got squeezed in the outside wall on the front straightaway. So we look at a replay coming through NASCAR 3 and 4, staying high on the outside, letting a couple guys go. But I believe the incident was a little bit further back.
Those are all GT Pro cars that this kind of kicked off with, and this was the pass for the lead. Watch as the GTPs come on up on them, and right here, oh, just a miscommunication. Tell you what, they did not make contact. That's one of those good things about those prototypes, right? They have some mighty fine brakes, and boy, did they ever come in handy for whoever that was on the top side of the racetrack. That easily could have been a multi-car pileup at one of the fastest points on the circuit.
Yeah, going down to the start-finish line with a big gaggle of cars. I mean, everybody going by like that. I don't know. That could have ended up being massive at the pit entry, but luckily everybody able to keep it straight, keep it all right. There's, man, a lot of evasive maneuvers coming now onto the backstretch, and we're on board with Scott Meredith, driver of the number 1 in the GTP class, coming through the backstretch bus stop. Now, looking at the outside of these GT cars, just hitting the gas pedal and screaming by them. Those GTPs are quick.
You can't really get a good idea of just how quick the speed difference is until you're like properly watching one of those fights from on board. You take a look, this is the fight for 2nd. Around the outside goes Patrick Vogel. He'll pick off Selena Ward as he goes the long way around turn 1. Beautiful overtake from the 15 Cadillac to put himself back up into the runner-up spot.
Yeah, we saw Vogel and Ward kind of run down Bernie not too long ago, but we just saw a little bit of lap traffic lap traffic, a different class kind of get in the middle of them and allow Bernie to pull away, and then they started fighting, and now finally Vogel able to take that position away from Ward. Gonna have to keep an eye on that 15 to see if he can run down that gap to Bernie and really give him his first challenge of the evening as we're 12 minutes into the race.
And meanwhile, Afonso Soto taking back the lead. We got one of the Mercedes spun around at the tail end. That's the 33 car, Tamara Abaga, going around to the MSP 33 Mercs. So troubles in this deal as well as, we'll get a look back and we'll try to find out what happened to this Mercedes. And I would not be surprised if this was with contact. Look at the gaggle around them. And has he, a little bit of help from one of the GT Pro Porsches.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Got into the right rear quarter panel coming out of the International Horseshoe. A little bit of a mistake. Unfortunate for the driver of the 33. He really had nothing to do with that. Just got taken out by the GT Pro coming through there. It was pretty clean, hard racing through the middle of the corner, and he just kind of got ran over. Tough break there as we look up towards our second place driver of the GT Pro class. That's going to be Sol in the 84. Trying to run down Alves still as every time I see one of the GTPs or LMP2s look to the outside of these GT classes coming through the NASCAR ovals. It's just mesmerizing watching.
You saw right there, the Fisher Motorsports driver actually kind of moved up a little bit out of line, tried to pick up that draft, and it almost worked. And in fact, it just allowed for him to pull a little bit more of a gap ahead of the Yellow Submarine squad. Meanwhile, the fight's on for the lead here, potentially, at least, or I thought it would be at least, for the lead in LMP2, but it looks like that's just a GTP ducking around. Saw them getting a little bit close, but we got a battle for the LMP2 class further back. This is 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th. All running less than a tenth of a second away from one another. Sorry, less than 1 second, not less than a tenth of a second. What am I talking about? As, right now, Thomas Buechel and GSE Esports leading the way. And there's a pass around the long way. Jack Hedgecock's making up more ground as he tries to retake that second place. But he's got a long way to go yet.
And he's not quite able to hold on to it. Just outbraked himself on the outside of turn 1 right there. Now under fire from behind. I mean, we see these 4 drivers like you were talking about, all within a second of each other, all fighting for that P6 position in the LMP2 class. Now as they go through the kink of turn 4, only 15 minutes into this race still a long ways to go in the qualifying race. But these 4 fighting hard for this 6th place position.
Every spot matters, right? It's one less spot that you have to try to make up in the Daytona 24 next week. So it's so critical to make whatever spots you can get early on. Ryan Steinhoff making his way onto the racetrack, I believe, after having to take an extended stop down into pit road. So this is the is this the number 33? This is the number 34 Mercedes, so not the one that we saw spun around earlier on. And just entering turn 1, at the battle for 8th in your GTB class. Thomas Sorensen around the inside of Scott Meredith, but Meredith looking to hang on around the top side, and I think Stop and Go Racing has just managed to hang on to that one in the 278.
Tough section of the racetrack to try to go side by side through. Sorensen able to hold on to the position over Meredith as they now go down towards the kink and then towards turn 5. Good job from Sorensen holding on. Probably the easiest section of the racetrack to hold on, though. Once you get through turn 1, you're able to get through that little I don't know, left-right section. Really tight couple of corners there that we call turn 2 before you get down to the horseshoe. If you can get single file after turn 1 through that little kink, it's really hard to make a move going down into turn 3. You just have to make it a really late dive bomb, but I feel like you can go relatively defensive and defend from that and set yourself up nicely for the kink, still in position. But we're going to look up towards the front of the GTP class. Vogel, he got this position not too long ago away from Selena Ward, but he's under fire a little bit, coming back up onto the NASCAR turns 3 and 4. Only 0.3 of a second between these two, but they are both catching Bernie by just a little bit. Kyle Bernie is slowed up just a tiny bit compared to these two. Vogel's been able to run that gap down by about 0.3 of a second over the last lap or two, but it's stabilizing right now.
On board in the drive up to turn number 1, over 300 kilometers an hour, going to look to the inside and trying to go for the lunge. Couldn't commit to the attack, forced to back out as Patrick Vogel looks to track up at 1. Oh, bit of a bobble there. Coming on the exit of turn 1 and almost sending him around as we got actually one of the LMP2 cars off the track. That was Torrance just up the road, the 11th place and currently last place runner in the LMP2 category, having some troubles. And now it's a bad place to catch some traffic of a slower class, but thankfully it is a prototype. That kind of helps with the speed difference a little bit as well. Off the track again will go Spencer Torrance.
Yeah, basically just getting out of the way here for our GTP leaders as they go past another, I believe that was a GTAM car, going back up onto the oval section of the racetrack. But now looking back, Steinke still holding on from Mora here for that P6 position. Oh man, a little bit of a fade to the inside from Mora. I thought he was going to go for that late dive into the left-hander onto the oval. Really tough corner to make a pass on, if I'm being honest. I feel like you really got to set yourself up for exit to be able to just have more speed coming out of the corner and more speed all the way through NASCAR 1 and 2 down to the bus stop. But now, man, the tight section of the racetrack now into the International Horseshoe. A couple LMP2s trying. Oh, man, huge contact.
Kyle Bernie has gone around, and Selena Ward is off the track as well, and Selena Ward's car is broke. Look at that left rear completely locked up, so big trouble. That was the battle for the lead that you just mentioned was starting to close in, and well, something has clearly gone awry as these guys have had a big coming together. We'll take a look at this one. This is entering the bus stop chicane.
Last we saw, Bernie had a good second lead, so I'm going to have to imagine with no traffic in front of him right here, he must have just completely messed up the bus stop, and he did. Huge wiggle through the center, comes back up on the racetrack in the worst possible place. Obviously, nothing he could really do. He's lost complete control of that car, comes across and collects Selena Ward. That's our first and third place drivers in our leading class, the GTP class, taken out in one fell swoop through the bus stop.
Ouch. And hard hit into that wall. That is a violent impact for Selena Ward, and well, it's not ideal to have a race come to a close like that, and you know that that's going to be one you'd be feeling in the morning. As watch the air this car gets when it hits that wall. No wonder that left rear was broke.
I feel very slighted for Selena Ward, because looking at the replay from her point of view, it looked like Bernie had that thing locked up out of the racing groove, and last second he just kind of released the brakes, and I saw those tires start rolling last minute and roll right into the path of Selena Ward. I feel really hard done for that race team just to kind of get taken out in that circumstance. I feel like it was probably avoidable, and just last second it became unavoidable. Unavoidable.
Curious to see where Kyle Bernie lost the back end of that car. We'll take one final look back at this mess that took out the top 2 runners in the top 10 here. This is going to be with that helmet cam. Yeah, just lost that back end almost immediately. I honestly don't think there was any avoiding that wreck. I think that's just the case now. If you're just trying to get that car back underneath and try to make up whatever time you can get without losing too much, it's unfortunate. That's just victim of circumstance, and that happens. It's just a shame it had to happen at such a critical point of the racetrack.
Yeah, I hate to put it like completely on Bernie about that, right? I mean, he's in the middle of spinning, just trying to get the car righted. It's not like he ever had control of it. It's just a little unfortunate. It looked like he was maybe able to kind of spin out of that thing and almost get rolling back in the right direction. And I don't think he let off the brakes with any like malicious intent or anything, obviously.
No,
it was just very unfortunate. And I don't think he was all the way off the brakes. I imagine he was just lifting off just a little bit, and it just started rolling on him. But again, it only moved him over about 3 or 4 feet, but that 3 or 4 feet, I think, is what ended Selena Ward's night here.
Checking back in on some of the GT class. It's been a while since we've given them some love, as the Screeching Moose Motorsports number 4 is trying to fend off the Firestorm Motorsports number 29. So a pair of Mercs here trying to duke it out amongst each other, as they're going to look to work their way down towards turn 1, this time by a lot of draft in these GT cars. As we see that look to the inside for turn 1, no, it'll make that smart move of kind of keeping that one in line. So I think that's a smart move, right? Sean Hatfield, he's driving smart, not hard. He's trying to just apply that pressure and hopefully maybe force Philip Forster into a mistake.
Yeah, fight for that 4th place position in the GT-AM class as we go down to the International Horseshoe. Just right on the back bumper of that Mercedes. 2 Mercedes coming through. Now going down to the kink of turn 4. They're not really too far off our race leaders still. I mean, only a minute, or sorry, I'll look up at the top and say minute. An hour and 20 minutes left in the race. Only 5 seconds off the race lead between these two. You got to think, you still got plenty of time at this point to kind of run down Sato and the 531. And we've talked about it earlier. We still got that driver change that we got to pay attention to. We have no idea which of these teams have started out with their absolute quickest driver, which ones may have started out with their second guy. So it'll be interesting to see after that driver swap, who's kind of going to switch positions a lot. We see the driver of the 5 right now still holding off from Hatfield in the 29, actually pulling out a little bit of a gap and might be able to challenge Mitchell for that 3rd place position here by the end of the lap.
And that's that draft, right? That's starting to come into play as Quinn Mitchell is starting to lose a bit of time in the digital chicane number 80. Now, I think at the moment, Mitchell being a bit held up by Stefan Dobes just up the road in the Fisher Motorsports Porsche that runs 9th in your GT Pro category. So there is some potential there. That's something that's kind of resulted in this gap, started to slowly eke in. I think you're right, though. We could very well get a 3-car battle here for the final podium spot in GTM before too long. And in GT Pro, the fight's picking up for spots inside of the podium, as there is Obeid Salem for Yellow Submarine Squad, once again trying to run down Nicholas Soul for the Fisher Motorsports number 84 entry.
Yeah, coming down to turn 3 right here, the hard right-hander, hairpin. Driver of the 84 still holding on to that 2nd place position. Alves pulling out a 1.5, almost 2-second gap. You see him just up the road, just about to enter turn 4. But Soul doing a really good job holding on to that P2 position. He's doing all he needs to do. Again, I'm going to be harping on the driver swap a lot. Keeping yourself close, keeping yourself within 3, 4, 5 seconds of the class leader here today by the time that you swap your drivers. If you're if your strategy, my goodness, I cannot talk this morning. If your strategy is to put your fastest guy in 2nd, all you got to do is stay relatively close, as we see a couple accidents going down through turn 5. I believe this is Mueller, turn around backwards in the GT Pro class in the 21, trying to get the ship righted, gets back onto the racetrack. Really tight entry coming back on, but he's going to be able to do it, no problem.
Kevin Mueller and Thomas Ambrosio looks like have had it coming together, potentially. Here's the 21 car, and no sign of Ambrosio anywhere. So possibly just checking up. He will have lost this all by himself. Yep, the back end just going to swing around, and right there, that's where... There was a big checkup, and that is just a case of not being predictable enough.
I agree to an extent, but I kind of feel bad for him because he was sitting sideways in the middle of the corner, and then all of a sudden 5 cars come around at the exact same time. I think he was trying to get out of the way. I don't think, even if he stayed still, I think he was getting clobbered by somebody.
Now the fight for 6, a 3-way battle in GT Pro, picking up Kinetic Racing, Race Tech, and Fisher Motorsports, all packed up line of stern, a pair of Porsches and then an Audi, and the 2 Porsches will working together. And in fact, here comes Stefan Jacobsen into pit road. Now he got damage from that incident. He was one of the cars that ended up having that contact, so he's going to make that dive into pit road. And will we see a driver swap here? Looking like no. Jacobsen will remain in the car for now, as he's just going to try and get as much of that damage repaired as possible. But it takes a while to get that damage fixed, and hops out of the car, so we might see a new driver jump in there. We'll get a look at that before too long. But in the meantime, as battles pick up elsewhere, John Gibson for the LP2 categories had a spin.
Yeah, looking back at the driver at 23, coming down into, turn 6, back onto the NASCAR oval. Oh, yeah, just lost the back end again, I believe, coming through the center of the corner. It looks like we've been losing it kind of at the end of the braking zones a lot for these guys. We'll get kind of on the brakes, and they'll be fine, and then about the middle of the corner, as you're about to start letting off the brake, it seems we're having issues. As we have our safety car coming out, our random number generator safety car has struck gold at the hour 15-minute mark.
So safety car deployed for the first time this afternoon. Patrick Fogel will be your race leader at the moment in GTP. Jory Mason leads LMP2. Kiko Alves has managed to get around Seoul for the lead in GT Pro. And then Alfonso Suto has taken up the lead in GTM. And in fact, we'll try to get a look on when Alves made that pass potentially for the race lead. In fact, that was right on turn. That was right on lap 1. So he's been the leader this entire time. I'm not sure why I thought he wasn't, but safety car will be out, and this is where it's going to shake up, right? Because again, there's a very extensive little flow chart that goes on when these safety car periods come about, right? There's a big process. It's not your usual, everybody's going to come down at pit road, and that's just going to be the end of it. You're going to have a lap where the leaders will come down, where the leaders will come down. You'll get a lap where the lap cars will be able to come down. Then after all that, you wave cars around to get them back onto the to get them back behind the leaders of their respective classes. Then you start to restructure the actual running order so you don't have guys like Patrick Fogel lining up behind a whole bunch of GT3s, because that's just a recipe for disaster.
So basically, if you would like to go put in a bowl of oatmeal into the microwave, if you would like to go cook some cinnamon rolls, if you would like to go pour yourself a bowl of cereal, or if you would like to go completely tear up your toilet, this would be the moment to do it.
Pretty much, right? I mean, this is the time to take a break, because we're going to be here for at least a few minutes. So while we are while we're here, I want to give a big shout out as well to the main sponsor for the season overall, Twin Bush, stepping up to cover a majority of the season for now for the VSCA Sports Car Championship. Twin Bush USA, your expert for automotive workshop equipment, located in north of Las Vegas, Nevada. Visit them today or find them online at twinbush.com. Twin Bush, quality that convinces. And bringing to you today's broadcast for the Roar Before the 24 here on Green Flag TV, simulcasting as well to VSCA's own YouTube channel.
We're having a really good race here so far, I got to say. For the qualifying race, I feel like it's been relatively clean and green, and not too many accidents. But the one that we saw that was really important was between the leaders of the GTP class, the first and third place drivers. Selena Ward getting takeout after we saw Bernie go sideways through the bus stop chicane right here. Just really unfortunate for a couple of those guys, but major incident from drivers that, I mean, those are probably going to be people that we got to watch to win next Saturday, right? Those are going to be some of the teams that we've got to be paying the most attention to whenever we come into Sunday morning and Sunday afternoon in the European time slot of next week. But they're going to have to start at the back of the pack of the GTP class. So it's going to be huge to see a couple of the faster teams have to start towards the back because of this qualifying race here from that one incident about 30 minutes into this race.
And we are at the point now where we could be seeing that second driver hop into the car potentially on the pit stop. So kind of reading through the regulations here once again as I look over the time restrictions for the different classes, and it is the same for all of them for hour and 40-minute races. There is no firm time limit that a driver is allowed maximum in the car. However, you have to have at least 2 drivers, and they have to have at least 25 minutes apiece. Now, you mentioned we're 30 minutes just about into this race, so if that second driver wants to hop into the car, that is very much a possibility under the safety car period, and honestly, it might be a good time to do it, considering we're going to be looking to try and get things more or less sorted behind the safety car period here this time around, especially if you want to get yourself into the car and not lose too much time on the actual racetrack with the extra time that it takes to do that driver swap.
Yeah, I feel like this is probably the ideal time to do it. Now, I don't know, maybe they're on the strategy of like a one-stop, right? But they're probably out of their fuel window. A lot of these drivers right now, I personally do not know how long the fuel lasts in a GTP, LMP2, or a GT Pro car, so here at Daytona. But I imagine the plan coming in was a one-stop, and I think we're just outside of that fuel window, probably by about 10 or 20 minutes, if I'm being honest. So I wouldn't be surprised to see a lot of these guys just staying out and not doing that driver swap yet. But to your credit, I do agree. I feel like if we could make it to the end on gas, it would be the absolutely ideal time to switch over to your other driver, especially if you started with your slower driver, getting the 25-minute minimum out of the way with the slower driver and then letting the faster guy just absolutely bonsai it for an hour and 10 minutes. Probably be the best strategy.
I'll take a rundown top to bottom throughout your field here in this one as Patrick Fogel currently leads the way in GTP. Thomas Martin, one of the few Aussies in the field, is bringing it up at the moment in the Fisher Motorsports entry in the GTP class, runs 4th at the moment. +6 on the day, the most spots gained out of anybody in GTP, belongs to Jeff Schroeder for Intense Sim Racing's number 73 entry. Mike Stanecki will be down in 4th. Thomas Sorensen is in 5th. Thomas Mora is in 6th. Scott Meredith will be in the number 7 spot. In 8th, you'll have Nelson Clemente a bit further back with a lot of GT traffic between the two of them. Neil Middleton is in 9th. Alfonso Queiroz will be in 10th. Matthias Baumler will be in 11th. Iker Estefania will be in 12th. And then closing out the GTP field at the moment, you've got Christophe DeMay, who's got 2 LMP2s between himself and the rest of his pack. And then Kyle Burney at the moment, way at the back of the field, back onto the racetrack, albeit about 5 laps down, so a lot of work to do if Bernie wants to make it with a good position here. This one, at this point, it is survival for number 3. Also, you got the LMP2s.
Leading the LMP2s, we got the 48 of Mason, then second place 46 of Ware, and the 621 of Harkema following them up. Unfortunately, my timing and scoring is frozen on my second monitor, so I cannot see any first names, so I'm just going straight off of you. 4th place is going to be the 123 of Vaughn, and then holy cow, this man has thrown me off. Adam Schick, thank you. My goodness, I appreciate you so much. Then Buchel in 6th, Hedgecox in 7th, Batten in 8th, Yeager in 9th, Torrance in 10th, and Dive in 11th. I do believe a couple driver changes at the back of the LMP2 field.
That's actually Justin, quote-unquote, Dive Bomber Barrera. So Justin Barrera, actually a common runner in in Mad Sim Racing's Pro Car Concepts World Challenge Series from a while ago. So that's why it just says Dive. It's a quotation mark. He's got about 3 last names there. So Justin Dive Bomber Barrera. I'm sure we'll find out at some point in the season why he has that nickname. Kiko Alves brings up GT Pro with Nicholas Soul down in 2nd for the GT Pro category. Obeyt Salem will be in 3rd with Thomas Ambrosio in 4th. Mark DeBoer will be in 5th. Vincent Herbier in 6th. Stefan Nobes will be in 7th. Saul Sanchez Flores is in the number 8 spot. Kevin Mueller will be in 9th. Stefan Jacobson and Nelson Lopez Narciso at the moment sitting in pit road. And Stu Leslie for, make that Huib Shrinky at the moment bringing up the field, although the RPM Racing Blues number 53 entry has not made a start so far in this race. Moving down to GTM.
Yep, Sato still leading the way in the GTM class in the 531. Then Kaprowski in the 93 in 2nd. Mitchell in 3rd. Forrester in 4th place. Hatfield right behind him in 5th with Stevenson in 6th. Raju in 7th. Romanowski in 8th. And Felver in 9th. Tucker in the 119 in 10th place. Gross, who's had a couple incidents here tonight, in the 312 in 11th. Elbaga in 12th. Bijan in 13th. Steinhoff in 14th. And Leslie in the 50 is currently out of the race right now in 15th.
Yeah, it's Stu Leslie, of course, part of the Off in the SS Racing crew, and unfortunately, they were the drivers that were disqualified for registering under an incorrect number, which is why we do not see them currently on the racetrack. But for the meantime, we are under safety car period number 1, and it'll be no doubt a wild restart of the Roar Before the 24. Just over 1 hour remaining. We're going to take a step back. You're watching the VSCA Sports Car Championship on Green Flag TV.
Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
Welcome back to Green Flag TV. Pit stops about to commence over here for the Daytona International Speedway for the Roar Before the 24 as the GTP leaders will be making their way down and into the lane. Patrick Fogel leads the charge down as we get set once again to see how this race is going to pan out. Jeff Schroeder opting to stay out at the moment in the Intense Sim Racing number 73. This is an interesting call for Schroeder to stay out. That's going to mean a green flag pit stop. Everyone else here, once you pit, I do believe you're going to be good to go to the end. And I think somebody's just missed their pit box.
Yeah, you might be right about that. So I do want to point out before the caution break, I was talking about how I thought it was just a little bit too early for it to be a one-stop. But given the fact that this caution has lasted 12 minutes already, I do believe you're right. I think that we are at the point where we do not have to come back down pit road, and we're going to see a lot of the driver changes that we're going to, we're going to see a lot of the drivers that are going to get us to the end of the race. I already see a bunch of different names in the GTP class that I had not seen before the pit stop. Baumler, Demai, Kofed, Parker, Vargas, a bunch of different guys coming up through the field.
Oh, and the 15 car of Andrew Parker, new into the GTP field, this car formerly leading the race, can actually lose out to Michael Matthias for the Fisher Motorsports crew on the exit of pit road. So a bit of a slower stop for Parker, and that's going to cost composite performance a little bit, as they're going to be funneling back out onto the racetrack right in the midst of all this GT traffic. Now, they are going to be resorted the field, so rest assured we won't have to worry too much about that. A good chunk of your LMP2 field, in fact, I believe everybody in your LMP2 field currently in pit road as well, as you just see the stragglers funneling their way back out onto the racetrack. And same story, a lot of new drivers into the race car. Pierre Stockton is in, Rain DeBoer is in, Christoph Gergely-Bakos is in, Jack Hedgecox has opted to stay in the car. Chris Cadiz, though, Rico Kohlmeyer, Tom Guest, Nick Nelson, and more all into the car. So a lot of new names at the moment, and LMP2 taking the track for the first time all season.
Yeah, I'm a little interested that there's a couple guys that didn't get out of the car. Maybe these LMP2s are going to have to make one more pit stop, but I probably would have gotten the driver change out of the way with under an hour left. I mean, we're nearing up on the halfway point, right? We're near 50 minutes, we'll be halfway. We're only 9 minutes away from that right now. I'm very surprised to see a couple of these guys staying in the car. I'm even more surprised to see a couple of the guys at the top of the GTP class not come down pit road whatsoever.
Well, you have to remember as well, a few drivers opted not to pit at all. Jeff Schroeder, in fact, has not come down to pit road. Neither has Alfonso Quiroz or Matthias Baumler. So the top three in GTP have all not come down into pit road. They have stayed on the racetrack for now, and that's going to mean a green flag stop coming up for them.
Maybe they're a little sketchy on the fuel mileage. I mean, I feel like that's the only reason they wouldn't come down pit road is if they couldn't make it on gas, right? I mean, I don't see the advantage of staying out if you're gonna have to come down and change 4 tires, put in gas, and change the driver, unless everybody else is gonna have to come back down one more time. So a little curious here from the top 4 in the GTP class.
Well, typically in endurance cars like these, you get usually give or take about an hour-ish of fuel. Oftentimes it's a few minutes more than an hour. I've seen drivers go sometimes as far as an hour 10, an hour 15. So you are good to go to the end on fuel from here. So why they're not coming down,
yeah,
it is a puzzling sight to me. And now that we saw a lot of the prototypes come down and into the lane, it gets sad to see a good chunk of the GT traffic come down and into the road. And a lot of the AM cars that currently were at the head of this train, they're going to be in ahead of a lot of the GT pros.
So I do have a question regarding the fuel mileage. With it being Daytona and then being on throttle for so long, and by on throttle I mean 100% throttle all the way around the oval, could they just be burning more gas here than they do at most other road courses, barring maybe Le Mans with the huge straightaways?
You'd actually probably be correct. It's very easy to burn a lot of extra fuel with how flat out you are for so many portions of the oval circuit, as we see a lot of pit stops undergoing. And just like the GTP guys, a lot of the drivers here going for driver swaps. I'm seeing almost entirely new names in GTM and, in fact, in GT Pro as well. There go a lot of the AM class runners making their way back. Oh, contact in pit road. That, I think, was with Vermeer and Lucas Santos making their way out of pit road, and that is a little bit of an ugly sight to see.
Yeah, it was a little weird coming out, both of them coming out of pit road. I mean, we saw 5 of them exit their pit box at the exact same time. It was always going to be a tight race coming off of pit road, but that was a little close there between the 80 and the 531. But hey, they've been sitting on the sidelines this whole time. All of a sudden, they just get thrown in the car. Maybe he just wasn't looking to his right coming out of the pit box too well as we're going to get an onboard here just to kind of see what happened.
Making his way out, and whoops.
Well, he should have seen that. I don't know. But hey, just a little bit of contact. I don't think I see any damage anywhere, so no harm, no foul.
Well, I mean, these cars are sensitive. I've seen I've seen damage from less. But I think you're right. I think that was one of those no harm, no foul incidents, but you never quite know. Some drivers might want to protest something like that, but that brings us to the next point, right? There is race control that are looking at incidents. Any penalties, I believe, are being assessed post-race, though. None actually in the race itself. The big thing, though, you have a limit to how many incidents you can protest. In most races, you'll get 6 challenges. Today, though, because it's so short, you only got 2. So you have to be very, very selective about which incidents you're deciding to protest.
Well, I don't know. Yeah, and I probably wouldn't protest for just minor contact on pit road like that. I mean, what are you going to do? And what would the penalty be? Like a 3-place grid penalty on the main race here next week?
If anything.
Yeah, I mean, now, don't get me wrong. If we're in one of the normal points-paying races, I'm sure you get a points penalty or whatnot. But I'd be hard-pressed to give out a point penalty in a qualifying race, unless it was something egregious. Like, if somebody just absolutely intentionally wrecks somebody, maybe you start that team like 20 points in the negative. But I don't think that we're going to be seeing any of that today. I can't believe the lights on the pace car are still on. I feel like we've been here for 20 minutes.
It's a long process, right? And there's a lot of steps that has to go through, and this is what you get when you get 50 cars on the racetrack at any given point across 4 different classes. When you see that GTM car, that's not going to be there when we go back to green flag racing. So when we see that Mercedes start to fade back, that'll be a good indication that we're about to get the show back on the road.
Yeah, I was saying you could do a whole bunch of stuff. I mean, I could have gone out and changed the 4 tires on my daily out in the driveway and probably got back in time. I could get a lot of chores done, but hey, I'm excited to get this thing back going. I think I'm just so hard pressed about how long the caution is taking because I was just so enthralled by the racing. I'm typically not a road course guy myself. I don't watch a ton of it, but man, I've been absolutely enthralled here today watching, just the hard racing between a bunch of these guys. And, I feel like the race for the lead in a lot of the classes have been relatively close even before the caution period. So I'm excited to see what the second drivers can do here coming to the checkered flag. The last 50 minutes of the race, I think the way that this thing is going to work out is we're going to have it split perfectly 50-50 in terms of, when we go back green.
Justin Barrera has just been given the wave around the pace car. Now, this is just so he can catch up to the tail end of his own class, right? Because the way it was getting set to line up, he would be finding himself it kind of lined up in front of his class leaders and would go a lap down effective immediately. So this would get the RJ Racing car back around. Now, this, again, standard practice. This is nothing out of the ordinary. And now that we're seeing these wave rounds taking place, that is step 1 of getting us back to green flag racing. Step 2, getting all these GT cars to the back. And you see how slow a lot of these guys are going? That's them trying to fade to the rear as a lot of the prototype guys are starting to make their way up towards the front. As in fact, there goes one of the prototypes, I think at least, siphon his way around the kind of the long way around this pacing line. And we have trouble with the 86 car. What on earth has happened to you?
Harmoning going really, really slow here in the 86, like you mentioned, LMP2.
The car's going to bits.
The wing is gone.
How has this happened?
Holy cow! It's destroyed.
The left front's all bent in. What happened here? Well, get a look, and oh, he's already damaged exiting pit road.
He's killed already. Did he lock it up coming to pit road?
I don't know. I mean, he was already towards the back end of the field, and I'm not showing any signs that he had any sort of a crash run off, but he's clearly has something go awry. But this one might remain a mystery.
Yeah, definitely not ideal for the driver of the 86. If it was any other day where my computer was if it was any other day where my computer was not absolutely breaking down and I had access to my main monitor, then I would go back and look and at least give us a little bit of insight. But unfortunately today I'm fighting some technical difficulties. But still, that doesn't change. Like I mentioned, not ideal. Thank you for the sarcastic reply there. But the 86 of Harmoning, you know, and I mean he might be rapid down the front straightaway, in the backstretch.
Yeah.
he might be unbelievably rapid, but he's gonna be struggling everywhere else.
I don't know. I mean, that left front is effectively bent in as well, and that will be hampering that car. I don't think he's crabbing at all. I don't see that wheel kind of off at any weird angle. It's just something going awry. Now, keep in mind, we are lapping a good chunk into this race now, as I think we're going to be at about lap 23, 24 thereabouts now. When he was in pit road that last time by, and we had already seen him with that damage, that was already several laps ago. So this happened a long time, and I'm willing to think this actually happened prior to the safety car even coming out.
Yeah, I think it's a safe bet at this point. You know, if this was real life, I'd be a little bit worried that car might take off like an airplane. With the front end sticking up like that and there being no rear wing to hold it down, I'd be a little bit worried sending that thing back out there. But here on the sim, I think he's probably going to be okay. I don't think we're going to see him taking off and flying into the stands or anything. But I don't think we're going to see him taking off and flying through the LMP2 field either. I think he's going to be stuck towards the back of the pack. That's just a heartbreak there for the 86. But hey, at least it's not the Daytona 24. It's just the Roar before the 24. So he does not have to, you know, waddle that completely broken car around for 22 more hours. He's only got about 50 minutes left.
Justin Delano on the VSCA side of the stream has speculated in the chat potentially rear-ended under caution. That would track from me, as in fact here we see one of the other GTM cars. That's Ryan Steinhoff being waved around the pace car. That would track for me.
I'd definitely be using one of my 2 protests.
No kidding. If he gave it that much damage, I think that would be worthy of a protest. But like I said, I think that tracks, considering we have no reports of going off track or crashing, quote unquote, at all. That makes sense to me. Let's be honest, if something that bad happened on a green flag, our event recorder would have told us about it.
Yeah.
That said, that must have been one heck of a rear end to do so much damage to even the front of the car. So possibly hit from the rear and shoved into a car in front. That may have happened then when they were just catching up to the tail end of the pacing line when the caution first came out.
I guess that's kind of a little bit of a double-edged sword with the long caution period where there's a lot of giving and there's a lot of take, right? There's a lot of guys going to the back of the field, a lot of guys flying to the front. Everybody's just got to be, minding, I don't know. Everybody's got to be on the edge of focus the entire time, even under caution, because you just never know whenever you're giving up positions or you're taking positions. And typically whenever I'm under caution, I'm maybe on my phone a little bit, kind of spaced out, but here today with the caution period being long and there's being so many different safety procedures that you got to go through, you got to take them serious. You got to pay attention the entire time. And I feel like maybe we just had a little bit of a lack of concentration from somebody.
Well, I mean, I hate to say it, we're pacing at about, 60, 70 kilometers an hour?
Yeah.
This is going to sound very blunt. It's not that hard to not hit.
No,
it's really not.
That's the thing with it being...
That's the ultimate not paying attention. And granted, I have seen that. I've seen some really bad incidents. Even in the real world, I've seen some bad incidents under caution working as a course marshal. It happens.
Yeah.
It doesn't excuse it, though.
Distracted driving is very easy to do.
Never seen one of the BMWs getting waved around the pacing line. Probably a wise idea to hold before making that run work. That is Victor Irulia Garrido for the World of Sim Racing team, and that's a fresh driver into the car being waved around to catch the tail end of the pacing line for the GT Pro class.
I believe that means that we are getting relatively close.
We are closing in. We are slowly getting there.
We're about to take, I'm going to bet we're coming to take 1 to green right here. Maybe 2, but I'm thinking we're taking 1 to green right here.
Bold prediction. Bold prediction.
I'm just saying the GT Pro
cars up here in the midst of these GTP guys,
yeah,
though.
You're right. Maybe 2 left. Maybe 2 left. I think we're getting close, though. I hope we don't get another caution. I hope the random number generator stays away at this point, because I want to get the full 40 minutes left of racing that we're going to get if we are coming to take 2 to green right here. I want to see some racing, man. This is I'm like on the edge of my seat. They kind of had me teased a little bit going into the first 40 minutes or first 25, 30 minutes. It was so good. And unfortunately, we just had to sit here and watch them pace for a few laps, but I just know the racing's going to be so good when we get back going green.
Oh, the racing so far today has been absolutely phenomenal, right? And it's a really good testament as to what we're going to be seeing, not for an hour and 40 minutes, but for 24 full hours when we get set to go racing next weekend on Saturday morning. We're starting an hour earlier than we did today, but we're going to be running right through. And I know you're going to be on for a few 3-hour stints that one. I'm going to be going for a full 10-hour stint straight through for the first 10 before I call it a day. I think my voice will effectively be like, you're done here at that point. We got a lot of folks coming from outside Green Flag TV looking to step up to make this happen. I know Scott Rankin and Peter Baxter, two drivers that have made starts at the TNGGIL Truck Series on Saturday nights, are going to be looking to make starts as their commentators. Over the overnight portions of the race. And then, of course, you're going to have DJ Clark will be alongside. He's actually going to be finishing off the race with you and joining you for a bit of the mid portion there as well, Austin. Lorenzo Bonda from Race Spot TV is hopping over. So is Ewan O'Leary, two very, very great commentators. We're happy to have them on board, really coming in clutch and making sure that we could give full 24-hour commentary coverage over that race. It was almost looking like we weren't going to be able to get it done, but last second they both came in, and got to give a huge thanks to them for being able to step up and make time out of their busy schedules, because they're both going to be actually racing in the official Daytona 24, taking place concurrently. So they're going to be doing their stints during their downtime from their private stints.
Oh, they're crazy.
You want to talk dedication? That's dedication right there.
Oh my word, that's unbelievable from those two. I can't wait to work with a couple of these guys. Never gotten to work with DJ. I know that he's gotten some notoriety in the real world broadcasting community here recently. So congratulations to him, and I'm excited to get to work with him and a couple of these other guys that are going absolutely crazy, running the 24. I can't believe they're running the iRacing 24 and calling the VSCA 24 within the same 24-hour stint. That blows my mind.
See a lot of the GTM cars starting to slide towards the back end of the field. Now that is a good sign that we should be getting underway. I'm thinking that the next 2 or 3 laps here will get this race back in action, as we are looking to race into the evening here tonight. We pull up those track stats again. The track is cool, 21 degrees Celsius, so that is looking to make this track a little bit quicker. We're sitting at about 5:15 in some time, but relatively calm winds, only 7 kilometers an hour. I would kill for those temps and those wind speeds. Right now outside, it is 14 below and blowing at about 40 kilometers an hour. It is not pleasant where I live right now, so I would love for these types of temperatures where I'm at.
I've been just about crying in the morning going to work, and I live in the southeast. It's been in the 30s Fahrenheit, so I think
it's so warmer than here.
Oh, that's way warmer than where you're at, buddy. I feel terrible that I've been complaining over the past 3 weeks about low temps in the 30s. It's not even under freezing for me, and yet you are you're at negative 14.
So let's take one more lap here. We will. I'm going to kind of pull up our schedule here. We'll run you through what the whole schedule is going to look like for VSCA, because it is a fairly extensive schedule with all sorts of race lengths. Obviously, we got the Daytona 24 coming on up 1 week from now. The SportsCar Grand Prix of Long Beach will see the return almost a month from now. On February 17th at where else but the Long Beach Street Circuit. I think that is our only other hour and 40-minute race. And then, of course, our next endurance race comes on March 23rd, day before my birthday, the 12 Hours of Sebring. Down to the Sunshine State. That'll be a fun race for sure. The Course de Monterey will see us swing out to California to the WeatherTech Raceway at Laguna Seca for a 2-hour and 40-minute sprint. We stay in the sprints for another 2-hour, 40-minute trip out to the Lone Star Grand Prix. Take a guess on where that track's going to be at, Austin.
It's Alaska for sure.
I'm going to stay my hand and correct to the Circuit of the Americas down in Austin, Texas for this one around. we'll go to the 6 Hours of the Glen, and where else but Watkins Glen, New York, down in Thunder Valley, and that'll be on June 15th. June 29th holds the SportsCar Summer Sprint, 2 hours and 40 minutes around Road America's circuit at Plymouth, Wisconsin. The Virginia Sports Car Grand Prix takes us to America's Motorsports Playground, to the Virginia International Raceway, and then the Miami Sunrise 6 Hour will be in Homestead Miami Speedway around their infield road course, although utilizing NASCAR 3 and 4 instead of their secondary infield section. I've never called a race at the infield road course there. I am looking forward to that one. Then we close it all out October 19th, Petit Le Mans, 10 hours to close out the championship. And Road Atlanta, if you haven't ever had the chance to call a race there, Austin, it is spectacular. By far, in my opinion, one of the best racetracks in the world. The flow, the challenge is nothing short of epic, and it'll be glorious to see these cars swinging out there for the finale.
I honestly can't wait for all of these races. They all sound super exciting to me. Now, I would like to defend.
Austin, are we still good? Well, I think we may have just lost Austin Edstrom, unfortunately. So we'll are we
Oh,
back?
I'm back. My goodness, I'm sorry.
We're back. We're back.
Yeah, I don't know. I said technical difficulties earlier. Anyway, I'm going to defend my Alaska Lone Star comment real quick. Alaska should be the Lone Star state because half of the year they only see one star in the sky, being the sun. Lone Star state. Big brain.
So, I hate to burst your bubble here. There are other stars in the sky.
No. Because half the year in Alaska, the sun's out, and the sun drowns out all other stars in the sky. So you only see one star in the sky for 6 months straight. Lone Star State.
I don't know much about Alaska. I've been there, but I don't know much about it.
Sorry, I just wanted to break your brain like I did last week with the North Daytona.
We're not doing this.
Michigan.
We're not doing a repeat of that. I know you wish we.
This is South Talladega right here. We're at the South Talladega before the 24.
Oh boy. This is what happens when you spend about
30 minutes under caution.
5-6 laps now behind the safety car. Hopefully we will be getting back underway soon.
It's only been 6 laps?
Well, I mean, I'm going to correct myself. 6 laps from when we saw these guys come into pit road. So I think about 8-9 total just about right now. Joel's real timing says about 24 laps are remaining. Now that's going to change once you get back to green flag racing. Noticing Brian Boomsma at the moment for the Fusion LMP2 car is down and into pit road. Now I'm curious about this, right? Because the pit stops are already complete. So why do you reckon he's coming back down to pit road for a second time?
I mean, that's a good question, but I feel like, well, has he already done the driver swap?
I believe they already have. Yes, they've already done
that. Then I have
driver
no
swap.
answer.
They didn't change anybody here. They were in the box for
I have no answer
31 seconds.
That's a weird one. I really don't have an answer for you, but I've got to think the front 3 runners of the GTP class and anybody else who did not switch drivers is probably kicking themselves right now because we've only got 13 minutes until they have to switch drivers.
Well, I mean, to be fair, one of those drivers, in fact, has indeed bailed out to pit road in the midst of all of that. Now, there are still 3 cars that have yet to stop. Now, Jeff Schroeder, Afonso Quires at the moment, and then of course Christopher DeMay for HAC Racing. Now, DeMay is one of the drivers that had to start this race from pit road. So that kind of blank 111 Cadillac did make the start from the pits and has since worked his way back onto the racetrack. And the only reason why he's in third, to put it bluntly, is because he did not come down here with everybody else. But a lot of time left to go. Lights are out aboard the Iverson safety car. It should be in this time by.
Oh my goodness, I'm excited. Thank goodness. But like we were mentioning, I'm so worried about Schroeder, Quiros, and DeMay. I don't think we're going to get another caution. I really don't. And they're just going to have to make a green flag pit stop, and I'm pretty sure everybody else, especially with how many caution laps we have had, how long we have spent under this caution car, everybody that came down with an hour left has easily saved enough fuel to make it to the end. So I'm worried about the driver of the 73, 222, and 111. They're going to have to come down and not only get gas and tires, but they're going to have to switch drivers. So within the next 11 minutes, watch all 3 of the front runners of the GTP class come down pit road because they've got to meet that 25-minute minimum.
It's going to be an interesting restart to see how this is going to pan out, and Jeff Schroeder will be with that race lead of the number 73 Porsche 963. We've been under caution for the better part of about half an hour now, as we're going to get set to get this race back into racing action here. The iRacing safety car looking to pull in this time by, and he'll make that sharp left-hand turn into pit road. Barney the flagman with green flag in hand and ready to get this show back on the road. There's the turn off. We'll enter the Geico restart zone. And we will get back to racing.
Schroeder checking off the field just a little bit as they come back to the green flag, getting down into turn one with only 35 minutes left on the clock. Schroeder easily taking the lead, going down into turn one, now through the kinks of two, and then into the international horseshoe of turn three. Everybody still single file through the kink. Looks like it's going to be pretty clean through the GTP class and pretty clean through the LMP2 class, but a little bit further back they're starting to race through the kink, and also the LMP2s are racing down into the international horseshoe.
Big gaggle of cars in the GT Pro category. The battle for fourth is picked up with Kinetic Racing, RPM Racing, and Fisher Motorsports all packed up line astern as we got a big lock. Oh, we got a couple of LMP2s, in fact, around. That is Rico Kohlmeyer that has just been spun around, along with Chris Candiz. They have both spun it down to the International Horseshoe, so unfortunate news for those two drivers. We'll take a look back on how this one came about, as this was into turn three on the restart.
Yeah, coming through the kink, everybody single file still. Getting down towards turn three, late on the brakes maybe to cause a little bit of
yep.
The 123 just lost that back end, probably a little bit too heavy on the brake pedal, and unfortunately the second LMP2 just had nowhere to go. Just kind of committed to that outside line, late on the brakes himself. As we look now a little bit towards the front of the GTAM pack. We're looking at the 93 of Scar now, back to the 531 of Vermeer, who's trying to hold off Santos. A couple new drivers that we have not seen in the GTAM class here so far this evening. They have done their driver swap now with 34 laps to go through the bus stop. Vermeer able to hold on to that position over Santos as we look up at Parker, who's battling Matthias for that P4 position in the GTP class.
Michael Matthias losing out to Andrew Parker, as Parker will retake that spot that they lost at pit road. Meanwhile, a battle for the lead in LMP2 is Stockton losing out on the LMP2 class lead. And this was all in the drive down to the turn number one. Take a look at this attempt on trying to go over the race lead as Pierre Stockton having to fend off Rain DeBoer down in the turn number one. It got close. There was an attempt to launch around the outside, but a little bit of a twitch from the 46 will cause him to think better of it.
Yeah, we're getting down to the nitty-gritty of this race. Only 33 minutes to go as we watch him go through the kink. It's going to get really, really racy for these front couple of positions in each class. GTP is looking like it's separating out just a little bit, but remember the front three are really going to have to pit for them. It's really going to be a battle between fourth and fifth for the lead, but in the LMP2 class, it is tight between the top five. Everybody within 2.5 seconds, and it's super, super tight between the top two. Only 0.5 of a second between DeBoer and Stockton for the lead of the LMP2 class.
And in GTM, it's pretty close as well. Chris Scar, Matthew Oravicek, along with Roy Vermeer, separated by only about a second each, as about for second, third, and fourth. The GTM starting to pick up a little bit more as well. And a bit further up the road, you of course have the Vulture Motorsports number 016 Ferrari that leads the way in your GTM field. Got a fight start to kick off. This is for 6th place in GTP. Albrecht Motorsports trying to fend off MV Skinlab DS Racing, driven by Matro Vargas, down to the number 7 spot, and around the outside goes Vargas, trying to get around Albrecht, down into turn one. Oh, contact a little bit. That's going to muscle Vargas up and out.
Yeah, tough to make that move on the outside. You're just kind of at the whim of the driver on the inside. I think Albrecht there just opened up the wheel a little bit, said this is my position right now. You're not taking it from me through turn one on the outside. Vargas trying to hold on to the now P7 position away from Clemente in the 88 and still trying to fight back for the 96. Probably a little frustrated with that little bit of contact through turn one. Now driving down into turn number 5. Looking at the inside, the 42 is going a little bit defensive from the 88. Also trying to get past, I believe that was a GT Pro car on the outside.
Oh boy, that was a GT Pro car that was on the outside, kind of getting pushed off as Nelson Clemente gets around Scott Meredith. That was around the outside of the kink, no less, so trying to make some ground, but now going to be under heavy fire. The battle's starting to break apart, but Clemente under fire by Meredith in the fight for 8th place as they're going to work their way into NASCAR 1 and 2. This time by just over 30 minutes left to go in what has been a long race so far, but still with a good distance to go. No move into the bus stop chicane.
No movement between the LMP2 drivers. But here, Stockton actually closing the gap on Bower for that race lead, and Pecos is closing the gap here in 3rd place. Man, they were a little bit further apart than this not too long ago. They were separated by 2.5 seconds, this LMP2 group was, from 1st to 5th. Now it's only 1.2 from our leader to our 5th place driver in the 23 of Barrera. Crazy impressive from everybody from about 3rd on back, kind of closing in the gap. It could have just been Bower having a bit of a shocker of a lap, though, as now he's going to be under pressure from Stockton. Coming up to the start-finish line. Does Stockton make a move going down to turn 1? He's fading to the inside as Bower's looking to the outside, but he's not going to be close enough to do it. Bower's going to take the normal racing line, getting in, and Stockton's going to just have to hold on to that 2nd place position from Pecos as he was actually going defensive into turn 1.
Yeah, not enough room to make that work as we jump back to FRS Sim Sports down the inside, and he's going to try to pick off Brian Boosma at the moment for the Fusion LMP2. The battle for 3rd is picking up as well as they're catching up to that same GT Pro Audi that the GTP drivers just had to deal with a little while ago. And this could be disastrous here. You got Justin Barrera in the mix of this as well. They're going to look to the inside, and that Audi going to give a wide berth to the West Horseshoe. I think that's the smart play there for that 55 car, just to kind of get up and out of the way.
Oh, the GT Pro has just absolutely taken out our 5th place racer of the LMP2. Barrera just got absolutely taken out going down into turn 6. I mean, he got left rear quarter paneled, spun to the inside of the racetrack. I have no idea who the GT Pro was or what he was doing, but he has absolutely ruined the race for the 23 LMP2 car.
Taking a look back, this is approaching that turn 6 to get us back onto the oval as, I think just try to get in line and misjudge that one big time. And I don't think Barrera hit the wall, so there's that's some consolation there. Scott Meredith, meanwhile, coming into pit road. Now, this is not one of the drivers that needed to come down, so this may have been a restart penalty perhaps handed out by iRacing. I'm not sure what the result will be for that one. Meanwhile, you mentioned you have to get at least 25 minutes. Well, Schroeder, DeMay, and Quiros at the moment still out. 1, 2, 3 with only 4 minutes left to get into pit road to make that swap.
Yeah, they're going to have to come down really, really soon. Kind of surprised they're able to stretch the fuel this far, but I suppose that 30-minute caution period really let them save quite a bit. But I gotta go back to the LMP2. I mean, Barrera, he was less than a second and a half behind our race leader, and now he's not even on our screen of the LMP2s where 5th place is 8 seconds back. So I gotta hate. I mean, yeah, he's only lost 1 position, right? So not too bad, but he had a legitimate chance of winning the LMP2 class, and now he's 12 seconds off the race lead. I mean, I just feel so hard done for the 23 team. I mean, that's pretty inexcusable.
Well, chin up. There's still a long way to go, right? I mean, just under half an hour now. There's a lot of time to make something happen. And speaking of the GT Pros, here's the fight for 2nd in GT Pro. Around the outside goes Robert Lancaster, taking the RPM Machine Sports around the outside of Manuel Meyer, and that will send Lancaster through to 2nd as Meyer fades back into 3rd. Swap for the 3rd position as well as Parker will pick it up to the 3rd position. Meanwhile, the top 2 are into pit road, and I'm expecting for Quiros to be in before too long as well.
Yeah, Quiros had just lost out on that 3rd place position to Parker. Both of them flying through, though. Quiros actually not coming down pit road. He's only got about a lap, maybe 2 laps left to do it. He's going to have to come down relatively soon.
Boy.
But, man, hard racing in the GT-AM class between Scar, Santos. Vermeer's kind of edged out a little bit of a lead here over these guys for that P3 position, but they're fighting hard for 4th right now, and they're probably going to bring Jones into the fight as well, not too far back.
Yeah, there was nearly a spin there. It's Chris Scar and Lucas Santos almost getting into each other. So close to disaster. But again, just able to recover as there he goes to the outside. Santos trying to take the spot away from Chris Scar. Going side by side into the bus stop chicane is always ill-advised, but they're going to try to make it work. And Santos going to be forced to bail out. And Chris Scar made that very evident. He was not about to be the one to yield.
Yeah, and that's going to hurt Santos all the way down NASCAR 3 and 4. Yeah, he might have a little bit of a draft, but he's falling back at 0.6 of a second behind Scar because he's chose to go in side by side, completely compromised his entry into that corner and ruined his exit. But the race leader of the GTAM class is coming down pit road. They had to take that final pit stop for the 25-minute mark. That's going to move everybody up one position in the GTAM class. Santos moving up to the 4th place position. Scar now onto the podium after he was able to hold on to that position. As we now look at Bower in the 0.48 coming out of NASCAR Turn 2 in the LMP2. He's only got a 0.3 of a second gap over Stockton, who's only got about a 4 or 5 of a second gap over Bakos. And man, the front four in the LMP2 class are still nose to tail really, really tight.
Stockton really trying to run down Rain DeBoer just up the road, and you can tell that gap is right there. Expect for a move to be made this time by fading to the outside, and he is going to try to go for the outside, making that dive into the tri-oval this time by. This is going to be bold if he tries to hang that one around the long way at turn 1. Side by side for the LMP2 lead. Stockton backs out. Boer retains the lead for one more lap.
Yeah, I think Stockton just trying to put off his competition a little bit, put DeBoer on a different line, going down into turn 1 than he's been used to this whole time. Pinching him down to the inside. You could see that Stockton let off and braked a good bit earlier than Boer did, so I really think he was just trying to compromise that exit. And it's really the first time he's gotten that close, so I really think he's just letting our race leader here in the LMP2 class know that he's there. He's still got 25 minutes to find a way around, and he thinks that he is faster at this point. But I've mentioned it, I've harped on it. The front of the LMP2 class is just so tight. As now we look at the leader of the GTP class. It's going to be Parker in the 15. Andrew Parker holding on to it. Gueros still has to make the pit stop, has not done it, and we're about to hit that 25-minute mark. So I think that's going to be a DQ for the 222.
I don't think a DQ, but I do think a post-race penalty. I'll have to double check with the VSCA administration after this race and see what the procedure is in an event like this. But he has passed that threshold, so not ideal, and will not be pitting in this time by. So he's going to try to. I think he's committing for the whole race. I'm not sure how they're going to play around with this, as Michael Matthias will be down in the 3rd position, just behind, rounds out the podium. A 3-car fight at the moment for the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th positions in the GTP class, siphoning through some GT Pro cars. Oh, whoa! To the inside goes Fisher Motorsports.
Yeah, I think Matthias is probably a little irritated at this point with Gueros because he knows he's really not racing Gueros. I mean, even with the post-race penalty, it's not, oh man, it's so tight through the kink. It's not really anything between the two. So I'm a little, I don't know, I'm just a little confused with Gueros' strategy here. And I'm also confused at how the heck he's still on the racetrack in terms of fuel mileage. Oh man, the 7 GTAM around hard into the outside wall with the rear end. That rear wing is completely gone. The rear bumper is off. I can't even believe the rear tires are still on that thing. He's going to have to take a tow back to pit road.
Yeah, that's a big ouchie there for Patrick Lindsay. We'll get a look back and find out what happened to Lindsay here as the 119 taking the tow back to pit road. That was the Ferrari. We just saw these guys getting around, so possibly a hit. Oh, yeah, hit by the GTP. It spun way off and into the grass and has backed that one into the barriers.
Yeah, it's a tough one. I was talking about that kink is going to be a trouble spot non-stop through this race, and it's going to be a huge trouble spot, especially when you get to the nighttime portion of the race in the Rolex 24 next week. It's hard in that scenario. You kind of just hope that the LMP2 is going to let off a little bit, or the GTP is going to let off just a little bit and allow you to get through there okay. His entry was compromised to the kink from a different LMP2, and obviously he's just going to run out a little bit wide, but you know, the LMP2s, I believe that was one of the top 4. They're all running so hard for that race lead, and they're all so close to it. So it's just a tough situation here, coming down to the nitty-gritty, coming down to the end here of the roar before the 24, trying to get every position they can get.
Checking in on one of the GTP battles, and this the fight for, well, 5th on back technically, but we're really watching the fight for 7th between Torque Freak Racing, Albrecht Motorsports, and Team Hardcore. And that is just getting split apart because look at all this GT Pro traffic that they got to try to find their way around. And right now, I think that 9th place driver, Team Hardcore, trying to see if they can't maybe capitalize and use this traffic as a pick to get up and around Albrecht Motorsports. But credit where credit's due, that 96 Cadillac has not been letting Hardcore in the slightest. So Albrecht, I think, could very well keep Lehman behind if he can continue to just hang on where he's at. He's going to get around that GT Pro traffic. First top, then to bottom. They're going to split the Audi in NASCAR 1. Here we go, side by side and 3 wide.
excuse me, there's just so many cars all under a blanket right here through NASCAR 1 and 2. Albrecht getting passed by the 830 of Le Mans as they're trying to get through the lap traffic. Le Mans able to take that position, that 8th place spot, and they're still getting through the traffic as they go down to the bus stop. They might get a little checked up here on exit. I don't quite know if they're going to catch him at the wrong time, but he's able to get to the outside without losing too much speed. But man, they're still just weaving in and out of multiple GT Pro and GT AM cars as we look now up towards the front of the GTP class. Finally, the 222 of Queros comes in 4 minutes past whenever he really needed to, and that's going to give that P3 position back to Matthias. Move Vargas up to P2, now 2.5 seconds off of our race leader of Parker in the 15.
I'm not sure, again, what that's going to lead to, but we'll confirm with the VSCA administration. Whoa, big trouble! One of the Lamborghinis hard to the inside wall. Big crash for Wolfgang Wildenauer for Real Pixel Motorsport, slamming the inside wall. Big time coming out of NASCAR 4.
I couldn't quite tell if he got pinched down or if he had come off the...
He lost that by himself.
No, there was a car on the outside that made contact with him.
You think?
Oh, yeah. They made door contact coming out of turn 4, and it pinched him down to the inside of the racetrack. He came off the yellow line.
Oh, yeah.
Just a little bit.
Oh, man.
It ends up being a massive hip check as you're kind of coming out of the banking onto the flat, and you're losing the back end as you're coming out just a little bit. Yeah, he came up off the bottom of the racetrack just a few feet, and unfortunately he got the short end of the stick coming out of NASCAR 4.
Well, that's about the biggest hit I think we're going to be seeing all race long, as here's the fight for the LMP2 class lead. Rain DeBoer still trying to keep Pierce Stockton at bay, and this is a titanic battle right now. The top 4 in LMP2 separated by just 1 second, just under a second now, and this is going to be a dogfight that's going to rage on all the way to the checkered flag.
Oh, absolutely. Having 4 cars under 1 second after an hour and 20 minutes of racing. Unbelievable job from all these drivers, just keeping each other in check. Oh, Stockton got a really good run through the bus stop that time. They're both going to have to fade high to get around. I do believe that was a GTAM on the bottom of the racetrack, but now they're going to be side by side through NASCAR 3 and 4. Stockton looking to the outside for the second time of DeBoer through to the checkered flag, sorry, not the checkered flag, the finish line. Going down into turn number 1. I don't think he's going to quite have it this time. DeBoer's going to be able to fade up to the outside. A little bit of fake there from the driver of the 46, Stockton. Not able to do it this time, as now they've still got more traffic, though, going through the kink. This could open up another opportunity for Stockton.
DeBoer going to have to go to the inside of GTM and GT Pro traffic, as he is going to take the Scours GTO 48 through and into the... and in towards that second position, in towards the race lead. Gets by the second portion now. Here is Stockton trying to attack into the West Horseshoe, but still no room for the 46 car to make a lunge. Not for lack of trying, though. He might get a chance. Look at the Hornet's Nest that sits just in front of them.
There's a Hornet's Nest in front of them, and they've lost a competitor in the rear. Nelson in the 66 has fallen back 9.5 seconds. It is now only a 3-car fight at the front of the LMP2 field. Not quite sure what happened to our 4th competitor here in the field, but DeBoer still holding steady over Stockton. But man, it is just a tight race between the two, as Boomzo's also falling off from that P3 position. It might just be a 2-horse race as they're getting down into the bus stop side by side for Stockton with a GTAM. That was a little hairy, as they're still got so many of these GT cars right in front of them.
Looking back to the top side, Pierce Stockton trying to make that drive for the lead, but has to yield, and I think DeBoer, maybe not. Stockton back to the bottom, lined up the slingshot down into the yellow line. No rule against going onto the apron here, but catch up to one of the porches. This is going to get tight here, and he's forced to back out, and that is perfect defensive drive from DeBoer, but he's in too hot, and Stockton through to the lead.
Oh, and he got a little wide on exit. Could DeBoer get back to him before they get down to the International Horseshoe? He's looking to the inside. Does he outbrake him? Oh, defensive move, get into the corner. Little bit of contact between the two, and DeBoer spins it, able to get it back, going the right way, but man, he got pinched heavily by Stockton getting into turn 3. Bunch of contact between the two drivers. It was a late defensive move from Stockton, under braking. It'll be interesting to see if the 048 might protest that after the race. That was a pretty late defensive move.
What an epic battle this was, though. Right on board with Stockton throughout all of this. Caught up to the Porsche. had the jam on the binders, but then DeBoer forced the long way to turn 1 and off camber, and he just licked that stem and center, and then checked on board with DeBoer on what he saw coming down to turn 3.
Yeah, that move from Stockton in turn 1 was amazing, but here he just kind of pinches. He just kind of pinches DeBoer down to the bottom of the racetrack really late, getting down into the corner. Now, I admit I'm not mostly a road course guy, so I can't make that call, but I do know moving under braking is a big fat no-no. So we'll definitely have to get a look at that as we go down 3 wide into turn 3. 2 GTP cars getting around another GT slower class car for that they're fighting for that P3 position. Kofed and Matthias. I haven't really talked too much about these two since the pit stop, but fighting hard for that final podium position in the GT Pro class.
Roy Vermeer having a problem coming back onto the oval, and he's been given a helping hand by the digital Ferrari just behind. Spins the 531 around, and then just after, Nick Nelson having this problem. Now this is one of the LMP2 cars funneling back onto the oval. There you see the Ferrari just up the road, and oh no! That is a bad rejoin and a half, and that forced Nelson to tow because his car was broke.
That was a top 4 runner in the LMP2 class that just got absolutely destroyed coming into NASCAR. Okay, well, I'll say some bad stuff if I keep talking about that. So we're just going to talk about Campbell here in 3rd place for the GT Pro class, trying to take away P2 from Mayer, but also don't look too far behind. Lancaster trying to take the position away as well, but man, they are in a ton of traffic as multiple LMP2s and GTPs are trying to get past. Oh, a little bit of contact with one of them through turn 4. You can tell it's getting down to the nitty-gritty. We're 15 minutes to go. Every gap that we see one of these every time we see a faster car even look at one of these gaps, they are sticking the nose into it, trying to get that position. And it's been tight racing between most of these guys here as we see Campbell able to hold on to that P3 position. A little bit of a gap here now between the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th place drivers of the GT Pro class.
Aiden Campbell going to continue to try to close up to Manuel Meyer at the moment in that 84 Fisher Motorsports Porsche just up the road. And other than that, so the GT Pro battles are starting to kind of die off, and even the GTM battles are the same. Lucas Santos and Matthew Oravec at the moment are the only 2 drivers left that are really within. They're actually the only 2 ones that are within a second of each other at the moment in GTM, and this is the battle for the class lead in GTM. So we got a battle for the GTM picking up as well, as Oravec really trying to run that gap down towards Santos and sends that one deep into turn 1.
Yeah, they don't have too much pressure from behind. Only really one other driver that's kind of within fighting distance as long as these guys don't take each other out. But we're off it. Holy cow. Oravec, oh my goodness. That driver of the 80s trying to get past Santos. I'm having an absolute shocker here today with some of these names. Oravec in 2nd place, 0.5 of a second back, but Santos able to hold on to the position for now, going through the kink down to turn number 5. Tight race between these two, but it's starting to spread out a little bit. 0.5 of a second gap as they're about to hit the NASCAR oval. But honestly, the closest battle for the race lead between any of our positions right now, as we've seen Stockton and Bower have a little bit of an issue. And I think the Bower's had a little bit more of an issue. He's actually fallen back to 3rd place, 8 seconds behind our race leader now. Not quite sure what happened to him the 2nd time, but we've now seen a lot of our races for the win spread out. We're really just down to 1 between Santos and Oravec in the GTAM class.
DeBoer might be saving a little bit of fuel because you are right. He has dropped off a big way right now. It's looking at about 5 seconds and continuing to slip back. So either that or he had got a bit more damage out of that than we thought. Remember, he did smoke the tires, something piercing right along the side of Pierce Stockton down to the turn 1. That may have upset the handling on that car a little bit.
Yeah, it definitely could have knocked out the suspension a little bit in that the left front tire. There was a little bit of contact to that area, and like you mentioned earlier in the race, these things are fragile, man. I've mentioned it multiple times. I'm used to the NASCAR car, especially with that new damage bottle. You can beat and bang, and you're not getting any damage. These things, if you touch a feather the wrong way, the fender's caving in and killing your tire. So I think that might be what we're seeing from DeBoer being well off the pace at this point. I think that battle for the race lead was just a little bit too much for that car to handle. But man, hard racing here for the 2nd and 3rd podium positions in the GT Pro class through turns 1 and 2, through turn 1, and now through the tight little section of turn 2, going down to the International Horseshoe. Mayer holding on to that 2nd place position over Lancaster, who has taken it away, that P3 position. He's taken away from Campbell over the last couple of laps, fighting hard for these last 2 positions on the podium in the GT Pro class.
Manuel Meyer continuing to hang on against Robert Lancaster. Aiden Campbell, the final driver, kind of in the mix at the moment for Kinetic Racing VSCA's GT3 Pro entry. Right now, in too hot for Meyer that time by. Could that open up the door for Lancaster to have that look down the inside into turn 6? Doesn't look like it, and no, he will not get the chance. So Lancaster sits in line for just one more run. But again, long way down to the bus stop chicane. Now, a move into the bus stop chicane, I think, is a pipe dream at the moment. I mean, we have not seen a lot of those unless it's a faster prototype getting around one of these GT cars. I don't think we're going to be seeing a pass into there. Very possible for turn 1, though, if he can set him up right. Well, we went for a look there that time, thought about it, but I don't think that was ever going to be on.
Yeah, he was trying to prove you wrong really bad. He might be listening to the broadcast and was like, watch this. But no, he faded back into line, just holding on to that P3 position, Lancaster. But he looks really, really rapid. Now looking to the outside of Meyer in the 84 through NASCAR 3 and 4. They might end up being 3 wide with an LMP2 as they come to the start-finish line. Coming out of turn number 4, they're going to be 3 wide a couple times, but there's going to be plenty of room for all 3 drivers. The number 911 still looking at the outside. He's got the nose in front of the 84 of Mayer. Can he complete the pass through turn 1? He's got the outside line. Mayer to the inside, the preferred groove, going to be able to wrap the inside of the racetrack. Can he save it his outside? Lancaster, he's still there on the outside through the kink. Tough to go too wide through here. Looks like both drivers able to do it as they come out on pit exit. Now into the International Horseshoe. This is for P2 in the GT Pro class. Lancaster move him up to that second place position. He's able to get past Meyer for it, but Meyer not done, fighting back on the inside.
Trying to get that spot back as a GT Pro car diced his way through. That's the overall race leader, Andrew Parker, that just blitzed past in the GTP Cadillac. And Lancaster, I think, he's managed to secure that second position. Tell you what, good show there from Lancaster and Manuel Myers. They were able to scrap it out for that second position on the podium for your GT Pro category. That's the type of racing I like to see in my endurance racing action. And in GTM, Lucas Santos and Matej Orvec still within a second of each other, but again, it's not a gap that's necessarily closing in all that much. Still possible, yes, but there's a lot of work to be done.
Yeah, Orvex looks like he's fallen off just a little bit. I know he is side-by-side entering the bus stop right there. A little tough for him as we look further back. But yeah, Orvex kind of fallen off. But, you know, we were talking about the GT Pro in Lancaster, how good of a move he made to get that P2 spot. He was P4, 3 seconds behind our race leader of Carapato in the GT Pro category about 5 laps ago. Now he's got the clean air, and he's made 2 passes and cut that gap down for a second to our race leader while making the passes. So I wouldn't be surprised if we have a second race for the lead here between the GT Pro cars in the 22 and 911, Carapato and Lancaster by the end of this thing.
Still watch the battle for 4th in GTM for the time being, but it's looking like that's not going to lead to much right now. So we'll move up instead to the fight for 4th in GTP, and this is quickly closing in because of a whole host of lap traffic. Michael Matthias trying to run down Alvaro Martinez for World of Sim Racing. The World of Sim Racing crew trying to keep Fisher Motorsports at bay, getting around the GTM Mercedes. That's the 28 on the inside, and flash the headlights there from Matthias as he tries to blitz around the outside of the kink. Just manages to squeak through, but has cost himself a good chunk of time in the process. He lost, I'm thinking, probably about 2-3 tenths of a second there.
Yeah, you get into the infield section, you have to start passing a lot of the slower cars, and it just really slows you up if you're in a GTP. Tough break there for Matthias. Have to slow up just a little bit, lose a little bit of time, but Martinez is doing a really good job here in that 4th place position, trying to stretch out that gap, trying to use the lap cars as picks, just trying to eke out a gap a little bit. Not fighting for that podium position, not quite close enough to maybe challenge the 278 in Cofed, still 2.5 seconds off of them, but doing a good job holding on to that P4 position. As we look a little bit further back, the 6 of Dance holding on from Le Mans in the 830. Can't tell if I'm talking about the racetrack or the driver here whenever I'm talking about the driver of the 830, but all over the back bumper of Dance coming through NASCAR 3 and 4.
Jonathan Dance trying to keep Jacob Lehman at bay. Meanwhile, the fight for second quickly picking up. Pedro Vargas under heavy fire by Morten Kofoid as he's going to look down into turn number 1. Around the outside goes Kofoid trying to make it happen. He's in too hot off the circuit for a brief moment and send Pedro Vargas back through in a second as the MV Skin Lab DS Racing Cadillac is going to be able to just secure for now. Morten Kofoid, though, he really went for it. He tried and just couldn't make it happen. Now flash of the headlights, trying to get that Porsche out of the way.
Yeah, it's probably not going to be his last opportunity. Still 7 minutes on the clock. Kofoid able to challenge Vargas there for that P2 position, but Vargas doing a really good job defensively. But coming through turn 5 and now into turn 6, back onto the NASCAR oval. Kofoid is really, really close. He might be able to use that draft all the way through NASCAR 1 and 2 to be able to make a move to the bus stop. Oh, man, really close here. That was Albrecht almost getting shoved out wide by a, I believe that was a GT Pro.
And had this moment down into turn 3 and had a bit of a close checkup, and right there looped the back end all by himself and locked it down, but a good save for Sven Albrecht in the number 96, just able to wrangle that car back underneath him. Checking back in on the battle for a second, getting around one of the LMP2s. That's for the JR race. I believe that would be trying to get around Barrera. Whoa! Almost contact between Kofoid and Vargas. It's a drag race now coming out of NASCAR 4 and back to the front stretch. Looking, though, like Morten Kofoid has got this pass secured. Or does he? Vargas still with the inside, entering turn 1.
Yeah, he's got the shorter distance on the bottom of the racetrack. Vargas breaking in deep. There's going to be contact in the middle of the corner. Just a little bit of door banging. They're going to be side by side through the double kink right here of turn 2. Now into the international horseshoe of turn 3. Kofoid finally has the preferred groove getting down to the corner. He outbrakes Vargas. He takes that P2 position away from the driver of the 42. Move Morten Kofoid and Stop and Go Racing up to second place in the GTP class.
So the Stop and Go Racing crew is going to be through to second for now, but Pedro Vargas is not going to take that one lying down, and a lot of potential for that pass to still come to fruition. Meanwhile, there's a brief blink out for a moment for third, and I thought we were about to have ourselves with a dropout in your LMP2 category, but Rain DeBoer back up into third, so credit where credit's due. DeBoer has really been reeling this gap back in, down to 11.5 seconds. At this point, though, it'll be too little too late. Manuel Meyer, meanwhile, still trying to fend off Aiden Campbell for third in your GT Pro category. And all the while, that battle for fourth is still picking up as well. And oh boy, here we go. Drag race down to turn 6 between Campbell and Meyer.
Yeah, going down into turn 6 into the NASCAR oval, still side by side. Neither one of them able to or wanting to give up that podium position. They are fighting for that third place spot heavily. And as they're side by side, I was pointing out that Lancaster was going to run down our race leader in the GT Pro class. He's got to get down to 0.8 of a second as we've got a tight battle all the way throughout. Tight battle for first, tight battle for third in the GT Pro class with about 4 minutes left on the clock as we see that battle for third place getting down into the bus stop. Mayer still holding on to that spot in the 84 over Campbell in the 67. He's going to be able to hold on to it as we get into NASCAR 3 and 4. And Lancaster is still closing that gap to our race leader. It's now down to 0.7 of a second in the GT Pro class.
4 minutes left on the docket from racing action here this time around. Looking to be about 3 laps to go. That's just give or take, as we'll be trying to make a lunge here down into turn number 1. Will he look for the top side? He sure will. Aiden Campbell going for it on Manuel Meyer. This time by dives on the brakes, but Campbell can't get the nose in.
Yeah, not quite able to find a spot there. Campbell cannot find the preferred groove around Mayer. Mayer doing a really good job running defensive into all these corners that he needs to be. Anytime that Campbell is anywhere close, he's running that defensive line, preventing Campbell from making the high percentage move. Mayer just doing a really good job running that defensive race, but I got to point it out, Lancaster now only under 0.3 of a second gap as our second place runner in LMP2
no, that's the
is
leader.
down pit road.
That was the leader. Pierce Stockton just gave up the lead entering pit road to Brian Boomsma for the Fusion LMP2. Couldn't make it to the end on the fuel, so Pierce Stockton going to be down and out, just taking the splash and go. He wasn't in the box for even 10 seconds there. That is detrimental to Stockton's race, as he may very well lose the podium here in the Roar, trying to beat Bacos out of pit road, but he's not going to get it. He's going to fall outside of the top 3.
Heartbreak there from our race leader in the LMP2 class. Not quite sure what happened. Like you mentioned, the fuel must have just been a little, but I'm surprised that he's the only one. Yeah, well, I guess he might not be, but I don't know, that's a little scary, which that makes a lot of sense why we saw DeBoer going so slow in the middle section of this after he lost the lead. It makes a lot of sense that he lost 5 seconds. He had to have been saving gas.
Taking a look back to the GT Pro class, fight for the lead kicking off. Robert Lancaster, you called it correctly. He's caught Ruben Carapato and now looks for the outside of the AZR Motorsport white Porsche. 3 wide with the GTP, and here we go. They're going to block the track as they'll take 2 minutes to go. Crossing the start-finish line. Can Lancaster hang this one around the long way into turn number 1? No! For now, Carapato hangs on to the lead.
Lancaster put on a clinic to make the pass for the P3 position, and he put on a clinic to make the pass for P2, and now he's going to dive it in deep down into the International Horseshoe, trying to put off Carapato. The 22 goes a little bit wide. Tight racing between the 22 and 911, and now they've got another driver in the LMP2 class going around quickly around the outside, or quickly through the inside as they go through the kink. Still fighting hard for that race lead is Lancaster. Crazy dive down to the bottom of the racetrack for the race lead. Contact at the middle of the corner. Nasty dive bomb there from Lancaster to take the lead, but he makes it stick, he makes it work, and he moves up to the P1 position of the GT Pro class.
If it sticks, it sticks, and he's going to be in. Rain DeBoer couldn't make it back. He's also into pit road. So that now leaves Brian Boomsma in the race lead of the LMP2 category with a 27-second gap after it falls apart for the rest of the LMP2 field on the fuel strategy, or at least for the guys that were in the top 3. Meanwhile, Andrew Park has started his final trip around.
Yeah, Parker kind of putting on a clinic ever since he's gotten into that car. He did not come out of pit road in the lead, even though his teammate brought him down pit road in the lead, able to pass the one guy that had passed him on pit road, got past the 3 guys that had stayed out before they even came down to take their final pit stop. And Parker able to just kind of gap the rest of the GTP field after he got into the car. But here we go. The race lead for the GT Pro class still unbelievably tight between Lancaster in the 911 and Carapato in the 22 as they come down to the stripe. They're going to be taking the white flag here for the GT Pro class. Lancaster still holding on to the race lead on the inside going into turn 1. He's going to be able to keep it, but does he drive it in a little bit too deep? No, he hits the apex pretty nicely there through turn 1. He's going to be able to hold on. Carapato still in P2. As now we look at Santos in the GT-AM, his gap has kind of dwindled as well as Oravex has kind of closed it in. He's half that gap.
Meanwhile, Andrew Park working the front straightaway out of turn number 4. He will be your race winner in the Roar before the 24, and that now leaves the battle in GT Pro. Lancaster trying to see if he can potentially make a drive here in the final lap, trying to keep Carapato at bay.
Lancaster drove down Carapato from 3 positions back and 3 seconds back. Now he's taking the lead and he's gapped him by about half a second, but they're going through turn 6 here. Now onto the NASCAR oval. Can Carapato get a good enough run out of this corner to get a good draft all the way down the back straightaway? Looks like it's just a little bit better than the driver of the 911. He's closing that gap all the way down through NASCAR 1 and 2, and he's going to do it all the way down to the bus stop as well.
It's a long way to go, but it won't be enough unless he can really capitalize in the bus stop chicane. He's got to get that line perfect. He's got an LMP2 car behind, but it looks like he's going to back off and let these guys duke it out for the win. Lancaster through the bus stop. Carapato cuts the course. He's going to go off the track, and that's going to be a slowdown for sure. That might be game over for Carapato's night. Although still closing in, still really trying to run this gap down. 2/10 of a second and closing. It's going to be a drag race out to the stripe, trying to pick off the leaders. There goes the LMP2 class leader just in behind. Meanwhile, Lancaster, he will hang on, taking the win in GT Pro. Lucas Santos secured the win in GTM, and Brian Boomsma crossed the line with the winner in LMP2.
My goodness, that was tight between the GT Pros. I think Lancaster got a little lucky with those LMP2s coming around his outside. They ducked back down to the yellow line before they got to the start-finish line, and Lancaster got a little bit of draft that he was not going to have otherwise, and I think that was just enough to keep him above Carapato. He ends up beating him by 0.07 of a second. Tight racing between the two. Oh my goodness, I don't know what the heck is going on here between some LMP2s.
That's Rain DeBoer and Rico Kohlmeyer. They had a drag race out to the line. This is for 4th in the LMP2 category, and just there, DeBoer able to take over the win. But wow, what a great win. There is Santos, your GTM class winner. We didn't quite get to see him cross the line, but we did catch Boomsma and all the other class winners at the end of the night. What an absolutely phenomenal race, though, we've had here in this one, and I don't think there is a better way we could have had to kick off the racing season for the VSCA Sports Car Championship than a race like that. That was spectacular.
Yeah, great race from the drop of the green flag to the drop of the checkered flag. Makes me really excited here for next week for the full 24-hour Rolex 24 here for the VSCA Sports Car Championship. I mean, goodness gracious, if I wasn't excited beforehand, I am definitely excited now for next weekend. Again, the race starts 1 hour before this race did on Saturday morning.
Well, with everything said and done and all cars across the line, let's take a rundown of your official post-race results here in this one. Taking the win in GTP, it was composite performance leading the way. Andrew Parker driving it across the line. Stop and go racing will bring it home in the number 2 spot with World of Sim Racing closing out the podium. We'll talk to all the class winners exclusively at the end of this one as MV Skin Lab DS Racing finishes 4th. Fisher Motorsport was in 5th. Torque Creek Racing VSCA was in 6th with Team Hardcore in 7th. Intense Sim Racing drives a 73 machine into 8th. Albrecht Motorsports is in 9th. DS Racing powered by Rubis Gas will be in 10th. AZR Motorsport Black in 11th. HAC Racing in 12th. Grizzly Motorsports brings it home in 13th. MSP3, the pole sitters of the night, will finish 3 laps down after they spun out in the bus stop early on. And then Trading Paints Racing Black, after they crashed early on, they will finish this race 39 laps down, marked as a DNF. Austin?
Moving on to our LMP2 class, we've got Fusion LMP2 as our race winners. They're going to take the pole for the Rolex 24 in the LMP2 class. Next up was FRS Sim Sports in 2nd with Rising Panda Racing rounding out our podium for the LMP2s. Then, I guess on that Scours GT 048 in 4th, Fisher Motorsports Delara in 5th, RJ Racing in 6th, Gowan Racing in 7th, Rookie Esports LMP2 in 8th, Tri-State Racing in 9th, GSE Esports Racing VSCA LMP in 10th, and VRG Sport in 11th.
Bringing it home in the GT Pro category, RPM Racing by less than 1/10 of a second outdrags AZR Motorsport White to the line. Fisher Motorsports will bring out the podium. Kinetic Racing will be in 4th. Fisher Motorsports, their other GT Pro entry, will be down in 5th. World of Sim Racing was in 6th. North Sim Racing in 7th. Yellow Submarine Squad Sim Lab was in 8th. Race Tech Competition in 9th. Digital Spirit DS Racing was in 10th, finishing 5 laps down. GSC Racing Merlin was in 11th. And RPM Racing Blue, a DNF on the night.
Moving into our GTM class, Screeching Moose Motorsports bringing home the W for the University of Minnesota. Second place is going to be Digital Chicane 80. Third place is going to be Firestorm Motorsport 29. Then Digital Chicane 93 brings up 4th place with MSP 33 in 5th. Dangler Performance in 6th. Fusion GTD in 7th, followed by Vulture Motorsports, Full Send Racing, and Real Pixel Motorsport round out the top 10. MSP 34 in 11th place. MMT Racing 12th. Yellow Submarine Squad Sim Lab in 13th. Trading Paints Racing Red in 14th. And Off in the S's Racing, probably off in the S's tonight, finishing in 15th.
Well, that will close things out for us here in this one, but we're not quite done yet. We mentioned it before. We'll mention it again. We got, of course, all of the class leaders that we got to talk to before the end of the night. And, of course, we're going to be looking to kick things off first and foremost with Patrick Fogel, the driver that started off the race. He may have started the race, but it was Andrew Parker that brought it home, as we'll bring Patrick Fogel up here into the broadcast booth. And, well, my goodness, it was quite a ride for the Composite Performance crew to get out there to victory here tonight. Excuse me, Patrick. Walk us through the race as a whole, because, boy, it was wild for you guys.
Yeah, it was definitely a wild race. Starting out, we had pretty good pace with the 3 and the 19 ahead of us. Felt like we were much better than them in the infield section, and sort of just struggled a little bit down the straights, but then obviously there was the incident in the bus stop with the 3 spinning and collecting the 19, which sort of helped us sort of set sail for the rest of my stint. And then with the yellow, we made the driver change to Andy, and then sort of just bided our time, and he was able to get by the 4 car and sort of just held that gap.
Overall, I mean, a lot of the troubles that we were seeing throughout the course of the race had to, of course, deal with lapping traffic, but it was really the top 3 that kind of came together in the bus stop chicane, and I know the 3 car spinning around lended a huge helping hand before we saw that first caution. Had that not occurred, though, what do you think you would have had to have done to see if you could get around the MSP3 crew?
Yeah, I mean, it felt like I was pretty similar pace to Kyle. I mean, it would have been interesting if we got through that second group of traffic. That's sort of the biggest thing with the prototypes here is we're always so close in pace that a lot of it sort of depends on where you get the traffic, how aggressive you want to take the traffic, and then also endurance racing is unique because you don't know the pace of the second driver coming in. So I knew we were in pretty good spot with Andy behind the wheel. We had similar pace, so I know both the 3 and the 19 also had good drivers getting in the car. So that's always the fun part is once the second guys get in, seeing where they stack up.
And overall, this has been a good indicator of what we can expect to see throughout the actual 24 hours of Daytona. What are you going to have to do since you guys are starting on the pole to see if you can hang on to it and maybe go for a win on the longest race of the season?
Yep. The biggest thing, number one, avoid getting in any instance that would be our responsibility. Obviously, with the post-race penalties, any incident that's our fault, we're looking at 30-second, 60-second penalties. So just making sure we're keeping our nose clean. Obviously, making sure others are keeping out of our car. But yeah, biggest thing, just staying on the track, keeping our nose clean. I feel like we have good pace. So really just running laps, keeping it clean, fuel saving where we can to maybe cut out a stint or two. That's really what we're going to be looking at.
Well, thank you so much for joining us up here in the broadcast booth, Patrick. Yet a great race win for Composite Performance here tonight. And, well, we'll see if you can follow it up with a win in the Daytona 24 1 week from now.
Sounds good. Thank you, guys. Just want to thank everyone at Composite Performance for putting the car together. Dirty Dom and the boys back at the shop, they did a great work. And also thanks to SimLab and Grid for sponsoring the team.
That was Patrick Vogel joining us up here from Victory Lane in your GTP category as, well, we're going to move things along. And we'll get to the other class winners in just a little while as still trying to work out who's who for the time being. So we're going to take just a real quick step back, and we'll be back with your LMP2 GT Pro and GTM winners in just a moment. Stay with us.
Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
And welcome back to Green Flight TV. We will, of course, have the rest of your drivers up and ready to go here as we're going to move things on down to the LMP2 class winner here. It is Garen Batten, one of the drivers, a part of the 777 crew for Fusion LMP2. Now, Garen, again, a wild race for the LMP2 guys. And, well, luckily for you, you were able to escape all of the early carnage, and you finished this race a very solid 27 seconds. Ended up being over a lap ahead of second place after everything was said and done. Kind of walk us through being able to coast away to an easy win for you guys.
Yeah, well, you're certainly right about the early on. I did the first stint. I think it might have even been twice on lap one. I was at a complete stop because the track was blocked. Yeah, it was just a case of working through my laps as the slower driver in the car, and then passing it over to the quick guys and letting them get the job done. So no credit on my part, but thanks to the other guys for making it look easy.
Well, I mean, hey, it counts for every single driver. If you're not in the car, well, they can't even be there to take the car home to victory. But you mentioned kind of having to come to a stop. It was a chaotic-filled first 30, 40 minutes or so of the race. What's the strategy when you're kind of in that middle class, having to dodge cars that are lapping you, trying to lap other cars, and all the while trying to make sure you're just going to be there to fight for that spot in the end?
Yeah, we came in with the mindset of, this is a dress rehearsal for the 24, so let's let's treat it like the 24. We weren't diving for positions. We weren't diving, pushing in traffic. We fuel saved when we needed to. Didn't take any undue risks. We literally treated it like we will be next week for the 24-hour, and just bide your time, stay out of trouble. Look after the X's. We ran it pretty close as far as the incident points went for a drive-through, but that's okay. We didn't get there, and so it's just easy as it goes, and just don't be the one that makes the mistake.
So looking forward to the Daytona 24 itself, you mentioned you were treating it like a dress rehearsal for that race, and I think the race we saw tonight very indicative of what we can expect to see next week. What's going to be the game plan then for Fusion and LMP2?
Get in, get out, give the car to Ed and Brian. That's basically it. It'll be pretty simple for everybody to see what we're doing.
Well, fair enough. We'll let you get back to it then. Congratulations on winning the LMP2 category here tonight from the Roar before the 24, and we'll see you back on track next week.
Thanks, guys. Cheers. See you then.
That was Garen Batten joining us up here, your LMP2 class winner. We will roll down to the driver that is just able to hang on to what was by far the closest margin of a victory out of any battle we had on the racetrack. Mark DeBoer will be able to bring it up over here for GTM. Now, holy cow, Robert. What a finish for GT Pro. Kind of walk us through, because I know you had a kind of the back seat for all of this with Robert Lancaster doing everything he could to fend off Carapato.
He was driving out of his mind. We just made one little slowdown penalty, and then he caught right back up, and he's just pulling away from everybody.
So kind of walk us through as a whole, because goodness gracious, I mean, it gets a bit wild when you get to racing action like this. I mean, Daytona is not the biggest track in the world, but just big enough. You guys had to kind of fight through the field. You started 5 spots back in GT Pro. How does it feel then to be able to know that you can have that pace to rocket through the field and make up the spots on race pace alone?
I think it's a good start to the 24, and I think we had a good setup, and we had really good pace the whole race. Just battling, getting through traffic. Had a lot of prototype passes that got us a little slow, but that's what happens.
So looking now towards the actual Daytona 24 itself, we've gotten through the practice and the qualifying race, so to speak. What's going to be the game plan to get that 911 car potentially into victory lane when we go racing for 24 hours 1 week from now?
Go fast, don't crash.
Go fast, don't crash. A lot of simple strategies, but you know what? They're sound strategies at that. Thank you for joining us tonight here, Mark. Congratulations once again on the great victory in GT Pro.
Thank you.
That's Mark DeBoer joining us up here tonight, and that will take us on down to Lucas Santos. He is the driver that comes home as the GTM winner in Austin. You're standing by with our final winner of the night.
Yeah, Lucas, congratulations on bringing it home here for the GTM class. Coming home, winning the pole, basically, for the Rolex 24 next week. Showed a lot of speed here towards the end of this race, able to hold on to that race lead. We saw it was a close battle at first. You kind of pulled out that gap a little bit. Maybe towards the end it started coming down a little bit. Were you a little nervous there the last couple laps that gap was going to dwindle down to just about nothing?
Yeah, I'll be honest. I think the tires were getting to my head. I was pushing throughout the entire thing. I knew from the data that I researched across the free practices and the test sessions that our car was there in the class. So in my head, I was trying to calm myself down, but then I think the tires were kind of like getting to me. But I'm so glad that this car held up well. The Operation Motorsport number 5 car here. It's amazing what we've done with the car. So glad to held up that lead.
Yeah, y'all are absolutely rapid, especially here towards the end. Does that just set y'all up super well for next week? I mean, does that kind of boost your confidence a lot, thinking, man, if we could win the Roar before the 24, who the heck can beat us in the 24? I mean, we got the pace, we got the speed, we got the drivers. You proved it here tonight. I mean, are you just kind of waiting for next week now? Just like, come on, next Saturday, let's get here already.
Oh, absolutely. Yes. Everybody in the team is ecstatic. Philip Forrester, my teammate that started the car, he was calm, so calm with the car. And to bring it on here, we just need to now give it to our teammates and say, right, cool. This car has the performance. We just need to perform now. That's what we're telling everyone here in the team. Yeah, we're just waiting, and we're really excited to essentially get this season off strong.
Well, y'all definitely proved it tonight that y'all got the pace. You mentioned you've got the setup. Y'all, I'm sure, have put in time, or an unbelievable amount of time working on this thing. But now going into next week, what's your strategy? We've been asking that to all the winners tonight. What's kind of y'all's strategy going into next week now that y'all know you have the pace to win this thing?
Yeah, so the first thing that we're always going to think about coming into the race, and I think a lot of endurance teams think about it, is just surviving the first 90% of the race. Once that occurs, then we're going to think about, okay, how do we maximize the final thing? But going into the 24, we just need to catch everybody up onto the setup. Whoever's going to be driving the car, whoever's going to be interacting with it, we're going to give updates, and we're going to have everybody have that drive time and prepare mentally and physically before the 24. Whoever has the start, whoever has the end, who knows? We're going to debrief that. But what matters right now is everybody knows what this car is capable of, and we just need to build up on our strategy with that.
Well, hey, congratulations. We're looking forward to seeing you putting on a show next week. We had an unbelievable, great time watching this race here tonight, all the different categories, especially the finish in the GTM class with you guys pulling through for the win. So congratulations, and we're looking forward to seeing you can pull off the double here next week.
Awesome. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you.
All right, that was Lucas Santos, our winner of the GTM class. Now, Nolan, what are we going to do? We got a whole week before we get to enjoy the 24. I'm a little sad. We have to wait that long.
No kidding, right? I mean, the racing tonight was nothing short of spectacular. I mean, this was, I think, the greatest possible way you could have ever kicked off a championship. And this is the sprint. We do it for 24 hours next week, and then all throughout the course of the year as well. Sports car racing, if you ask me, is one of the most challenging forms of motorsports because of all the different nuances that go into it. You're not fighting yourself. You're fighting your class, then every other class on the track as well, trying to fight amongst themselves. It adds such a layer to things that cannot be matched by any other form of motorsport. I cannot wait for the Daytona 24. It's going to be absolutely phenomenal. I know you're going to be kind of in and out of the booth all throughout the course of that broadcast. You're starting and ending it in a stint in the middle. But I can tell you right now, I hope that we're all going to be sticking around to watch the whole thing because it's going to be a good show.
If I didn't have to sleep, I would. And, I've been a little nervous this past month and a half after you brought this opportunity to my front door, just this being a little bit out of my wheelhouse, being a NASCAR guy. But after watching this race here today and learning a little bit, just watching what these guys could do, I mean, I was thoroughly impressed, thoroughly enjoying myself the entire time. And I'm sure it's going to be the exact same next week for the 24. I mean, I've used the word excited a million times tonight, but I just can't think of anything else. I mean, that was just an unbelievable race to start out the season, the qualifying race. And I am just thrilled to get the season start next weekend.
Well, there's a lot of action coming on up here on Green Flag TV. Over the next couple of weeks, over the next couple of days, we're going to have the High Tide Racing League Everest Designs Cup Series making its return to Green Flag TV on Monday night when they will go racing down to the Texas Motor Speedway for the second round of the Round of 8. The Ole Miss Road Truck Series will return on Tuesday night as they swing out to Chicagoland. And then later on tonight, to honor a fallen friend, we'll be having the Robert Jordan 200 for the TNGGIL Truck Series, a special memorial race to honor a friend that was lost just yesterday morning. But we'll be there with all and more. And then, of course, the Daytona 24 for the VSCA Sports Car Championship kicks off racing action. Not tomorrow, excuse me. It will kick off on a beautiful Saturday morning coming on up on Green Flag TV. All the way next week. It's a long ways, but boy, it will ever be worth it. For now, from the World Center of Racing, my name has been Ola Rambo. Thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you all next time when we go racing for 24 hours.